especially in government, access to information versus privacy, the right to freedom of expression. But this one, let's have Irungu. How do you balance? And who decides what is the balance?
I think there's a case by case. I think the constitutional framework, Article 31, the DPA, and just to mention, how far we've come with the DPA. I mean, I seem to remember, the first data privacy event that was held was actually a Zoom conversation. And now we've done Kisumu, we've done Eldoret. It's looking a lot different. Feels very different. And I think this is what we need to encourage. And it's not just Eldoret. I'm told it's multiple locations on the same day. We've come from very far. But I think the constitutional framework is robust. I think the Data Protection Act is a good act. I'm one of the people who say, let's not rush to amend the act. I know there's talk about doing that, but I think it's extremely dangerous, not just in terms of what we're negotiating with the European Union, but I think also for the act to breathe. 5 years is not a long time for a law. I've been very concerned about a couple of the litigations that have been introduced, particularly I think my good friend Honorable Omtata's litigation that is quite old now, but it seems to want to pull us back to a point where we reopen up the issue, and I don't think that's helpful for the country. So I think I would start by saying that the legal framework is strong. We're starting to see more conversations around tightening up freedom of expression. I think that is concerning for us. The Cybercrimes Act still is not necessarily an entirely bad act, but there are some provisions that have really violated human rights over the last few years. So I think we do need to
10
see...
10 seconds.
Okay. So I think we do need to see...
And as you complete, give us your parting remarks so that we can have everybody with their... And on your parting remarks, talk about the culture moving forward.
Yeah.
Is the pressure increasing or is it decreasing?
Yeah. It is? Increasing.
Okay.
Decreasing. Increasing. Okay. So that one's by popular demand. We have been salimiad. No, I think three quick comments. First of all, I think the legal framework is good. I think culture, we still have a lot to do. We are underfunded and not moving as quickly as we can. I do respect the work of the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. I think with the resources that they have, I wish they had more resources. They could do more. And I think we within civil society and the commercial actors need to do a lot more in terms of sensitization. And let's be very careful about attempts to try and limit the freedom of expression as we go forward, particularly as we head into the elections, or as Dr. Gigi would say, as we are in the election phase.
Thank you. Gigi, parting shot, Dr. Gigi. You guys, we always have to remember to say Dr. Gigi.
Yes, it's hard-earned.
Yeah.
I like what the lady from APL asked, because that has been my question, and it's going to be my parting shot on how do you balance privacy with public interest. I think even the issue of putting people in coffins, they are not the people, they are images. So we must recognize those forms of expression, that's a platform that people must be allowed. However, I want to say that we must continue creating more awareness on responsible online behavior. How do we do that? It's about the capacity building, programs that I talked about. So as you express yourself irresponsibly in online, there are also ethical data management concerns that are there. And those can only be embraced and enhanced in our communication if we continue creating awareness and raising awareness. And finally, the Office of the Data Protection Commission must be allowed to operate independently without interference, just like the Auditor General's Office operates, so that then we can continue dealing with this issue.
Thank you so much. Sharon?
Thanks very much. I think for me, my parting shot would be the culture of learning and continual improvement is integral for us to embed data protection and privacy in everything that we do in this country. So I would urge all of us to continually read up, continually challenge what you are doing when you process people's information, and make sure, be satisfied that you're operating to a high standard of compliance with the Data Protection Act and regulations. Thank you.
Prof?
Future prof, Yeah, I think my closing remark will be related to the question, how do you balance public interest vis-a-vis, the data subject of privacy interests? I think it's important to realize that consent is not the only legal basis for processing data. And I could give the example of during COVID, any person who tested positive was supposed to declare their status with government. And if you look at the privacy, the general understanding of privacy, they will think that's a violation. But you see, the Act provides for, other legal bases where the ministers can, invoke and say, for the sake of public health interest, we're going to suppress your privacy. So it is not like consent is the only basis, and therefore the balance is actually provided for. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we can appreciate the panelists for the great input. I think one takeaway that we've seen is collaboration. I think it's very clear we need to collaborate. We need professionals, we need private sector, we need public sector, we need academics to talk about these issues. So thank you so much for your input. Thank you for improving the culture, and hopefully the determinations from the ODPC will reduce from the photos. I think somebody said it's just photos. So we'll stop from the photos and go to other things about compliance. But thank you so much, and thank you to the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner for always convening us and bringing us together, listening to us, and including us in these conversations.
A big round of applause to the panelists and the moderator. Thank you so much. We'll have a final photo, but in the meantime, we have gifts ready for our panelists. Building a data privacy culture, empowering individual. And there we go. The gifts being given by the one and only, the Data Protection Commissioner. Makofi tafadhali. Asante sana. Thank you so much indeed. Asante sana. Building a data privacy culture, empowering individuals to protect their data. Thank you so much, Asante sana. Excellent. Thank you so much. Dr. Laibuta right there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Our first panel discussion. A final big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you so much indeed. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we want to switch gears in a moment as we celebrate our dear beloved country and the place of personal data, safeguarding personal data. Asante sana. Thank you so much indeed, our dear panelists. We celebrate you. You are important, you are precious. So please turn to the person seated next to you and tell them you are the event. You are the event. Absolutely. So you need to happen. Tell them you need to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in Eldoret 2025, County 027. Vivian, John Mark. Elijah? Duke, yes, Duke. First timers in Eldoret. So we want to make sure that you are not just welcomed by the moderator, but officially welcomed. And so I'd kindly request that we please put our hands together for the CEC ICT Uasin Gishu County, Lucy Njoroge, to give us the opening remarks so that you're well welcomed. Karibu sana. Honorable Lucy Njoroge, karibu sana.
Okay, thank you so much for the invite to make remarks as I wait for the panel discussion in the afternoon. So my name is Engineer Lucy Ngendo Njoroge, the CEC member for Youth Affairs, Sports, ICT and Innovation here in Uasin Gishu County under the leadership of His Excellency Daktari Jonathan B. Chelilim. I'm glad to be here this morning, and we really want to appreciate each and every one of you for having come out to just get this, because as we continue creating awareness to what data protection, data processing, and also the privacy of the information you have calls for, it is indeed great to know that we have the Office of the Data Protection Commission holding our hands. This morning, we received, His Excellency the Governor received the visitors, our guests, and one thing that was very outstanding is that His Excellency the Governor has ensured that the data from all the citizens of Uasin Gishu County is well protected. And also, as you realize that we collect a lot of data from the citizens, whenever you're paying your parking, even for the visitors, we'll request for your phone number maybe, and we want to assure you through His Excellency the Governor that your data is well protected. We process a lot of data too, and we also want to confirm that that is well taken care of. In regards to maybe the session today, and the fact that I look like a youth, I'm a youth at heart. For those who can't see me, maybe I can come out like this. Yeah, I would want to just have a small talk to the, to the youth in Kenya, that even as we request for accountability, as we request for information, as we request for transparency in the governance, it is very good to also keep in mind that there are better ways of asking for that information. The trend that has been going on in regards to maybe infringing other people's privacy, in regards to maybe what we've just heard from the morning panel discussion, is that we wouldn't want to go in the line of it is due to public demand. Let us know that any person, whether you are a citizen, whether you are a politician, whether you hold whichever position, you also have a right to be, your life being private. So my urge to the youths and to maybe the Gen Z in quotes, when we also want to have our lives protected, our rights protected, let's also remember that other person deserves their rights. We also have the knowledge of the acts and policies and laws that are there. Let us continue getting to learn them. Let us not assume anything. We have realized also, maybe not a particular group or per se, but all of us have realized that there is so much negativity in the media, or rather social media. Sometimes too much of cyberbullying. Don't ask me how I deal with cyberbullying, because if as long as you know what you're doing is right, whether someone wants to appreciate it or not, keep to your lane. So there's so much negativity, and I would want us to know that as much as we know that maybe someone has angered you in one way or the other, please, the negative energy you carry is more than someone who is doing a construction work. I hope I'm clear on that. So kindly, let us carry positivity, let us have positive energy, and also let us remember that in everything that we do, you will be accountable, you will be answerable, one day, one time. I may not want to maybe bring the bigger picture of maybe spirituality, but one day, one time, you will be accountable for your actions. Otherwise, those were the few remarks. We'll still be with the team, with the panel discussion in the afternoon, and I will also want to...
The public interest is a discussion that we need to know. And I'm happy that it is evolving, the discussions, people to understand the different stakeholders and all that. I am sure that you will not have much difference in government. You know, government is obsessed with private and confidential, isn't it? You get a letter addressed to all cabinet secretaries, all PSs, and it is called private and confidential. You wonder how private and confidential that can be, isn't it? Or you find that the newspaper for the CEO's office is stamped secret. Now, if you were to pale because it's addressed the CEO, it is secret and confidential. And serikali, isn't it? And then you have a constitution. Irungu will not agree with this, but the Constitution of Kenya 2010 looks like an opposition manifesto. The rights and privileges offered by the Constitution are too brutal. They look like an opposition manifesto, isn't it? Right to know, lifestyle audits, we will declaration of salaries and stuff like that, isn't it? Then people plow them back. So I think we have those challenges here and there, the violations of privacy, the rights of Kenyans to know, and understanding the roles of each to really reflect about. So I hope that as we reflect about this International Data Protection Week, we will learn the conversion of information into data, and then which one now becomes private and which goes public, and most important, especially for protection of Kenyans, because I think we are there is a lot of information technology and innovation going on that we can ask AI or any other Nini to attach voices to a person, and you can never know what is fake, isn't it? You can ask, even you publish private information, you can ask technology to provide that and circulate it. That understanding, especially technological opportunities and the challenges thereof, is a big discussion we need to have so that we can move together as a country, knowing that countries, especially in the region, mostly in the sub-Saharan Africa, look up to Kenya to lead the way. We need to have those robust discussions so that we are able to protect the rights of the citizens and the rights of the individuals who are being put out in the public. Thank you very much, and I wish you fruitful deliberations.
On point. Thank you so much indeed. At this particular moment, I'd kindly request that we be upstanding. Let's just be upstanding for a moment as we welcome the one and only, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have the screen. A big round of applause for her.
She is a seasoned advocate of the High Court of Kenya with 14 years of standing in this capacity. She has made significant contributions to the field of data protection in Kenya, playing a pivotal role in the development of regulations that operationalized the Data Protection Act of 2019 and establishing a fully functional office dedicated to safeguarding data privacy. She serves as the first vice chair on the board of the Network of African Data Protection Authorities, positioning Kenya prominently on the data protection map. Please welcome the Data Commissioner at the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner in Kenya, Immaculate Kasait.
Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. You may kindly have your seats. Asante sana.
Please have your seat. I asked, Wakazi, we said people are going to stand. Is it morning yet? It's still morning. Good morning. Allow me this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of our County Commissioner Wasili Gishu, Dr. Edson Nyale, habari ya Mombasani. Asante. And Engineer Lucy Njoroge, who is the CC Youth Affairs, Sports and ICT. Karibu sana, and thank you for welcoming us. And the CEO present, of course, before me is the CEO for Media Council, Mr. David Omoyo, and my friend IRA. Simama, Godfrey najua utaki watu wajue uko hapa. Ndakusimamisha tu. That's the CEO for IRA. Ukisikia uko na shida na insurance, mtafute hapo kando. Thank you for coming. As I sit here, we had an earlier meeting. Sorry, our apologies for coming slightly late. We went for a courtesy call at governor's office, and also a media event. And the governor will be here tomorrow, and also our CS. So County Commissioner utusaidia hapo kesho mkiwa na waziri tukaribisha CS hapo. Yeah, but before I go to my official speech, otherwise I'll also be put to task by people who spend a weekend writing this speech. Two things, and I know Dr. Laibuta, two doctors I have witnessed. One invited me for their celebration, the other one did not. I'll not say to the one who did not. Dr. Laibuta, I like to challenge us in terms of our reading. And one of the things I want to challenge us to reflect on today, there's a new release called the Tech Coup by Maritij Sakat. She's from Switzerland or Netherlands. She's a professor at one of Ivy League University. It disappeared. Listening to that book, it is shocking. And I don't think we realize how, like Irongo likes to remind us how naked we have become. I don't think we realize it. It is very, very serious. I listened to her reflect about the Kenyan elections in 2017. An election observer who came here, sent by the European Union, and she was reflecting about tech and Kenya, and how it's almost impossible for observers to now actually observe elections because of tech. Because many techs, I know Adam is in the house, will say we are protected by trade secrets. Therefore, we cannot share what we are collecting and how we are building these models. Why is that important? Because when you listen to her or read, I prefer to listen, she analyzes where we are as a global south and probably worldwide. And I identified the 4 pillars of tech, whether it is data centers, whether it is chips, whether it is development of software. And she says, where is government? How are we able to analyze what is being used? Can we use it irrespective, or must we rely on people to tell us what is happening? She goes into the details of Cambridge Analytica, which Dr. Laibuta talked about. And as I sat there and listened to the panel discussion, we should be very concerned. I think we should be very concerned. The issue around accountability, transparency, democracy. The reason I touch on democracy, because in my other life, I'm a governance expert. It's what will the 2027 elections look like? And Dr. Laibuta said here, Cambridge Analytica is going to look like child play. Are we ready? Are we asking questions? Can we leave it to few institutions to be responsible to actually ask those questions, or must we do that collectively? It must concern us, because because we are all in tech here, I want to believe, or those of us who are joining are going to appreciate, Just yesterday, or 2 days ago, Sam Altman, who is a lead in ChatGDP, has just released another one, more powerful than ChatGDP. And it is called what? What is it called? What has just been released on tech? Assistant agent. And if those of you who follow a very prominent privacy professional called Luza, in her write-up, because she produces a lot on issues around privacy, she has said, rest in peace, autonomy. And you may ask, why is she saying rest in peace, autonomy? Because whereas we could say ChatGDP would write, type, and then it generates for you, this is an assistant who is AI. What will that mean for you? That is the end of my reflection. Let me go to my speech. I want to appreciate all of us who are present here today and really taking time to fly into Wasligishu and Waziri and County Commissioner. We are very grateful to be hosted here. It gives me great pleasure to thank each one of you here today as we celebrate the annual Data Privacy Day. And Irongo did mention the first Data Privacy Day. On one screen was him, the other one was Linda Obonyo, and the other one was me. It was height of COVID. We were not allowed to have meetings. We were just speaking and giving a talk about what it means. And I see him shaking his head, thinking, reflecting on how far we have come. And this is a celebration globally, and it didn't start today. When you look at Convention 108, which is almost 41 years ago, this is when the day started being celebrated, safeguarding personal data to spur digital transformation and economic development is our theme this year. And I would say the theme highlights the role of the digital privacy in enabling suitable growth in terms of the economy in the digital era. It should not be lost to us that the protection of personal data does not only enable the organization to build trust, but it also drives innovation and secures digital ecosystem. Let me pause just for a minute. Some of the things that the tech coup reflects on is that in the world today, we have even crafted words to demonize. I remember, Adam, you're not one of them, but I remember, and Sharon, people saying, but this data protection is going to kill innovation. But we never stopped. I think Walu was one of those who used to say. I don't even know why he's on the other side of the wing now. But think about it. Who crafted that word and why? It's because we did not want to be held accountable when it comes to creating guardrails. And the question, and as I pause there in terms of, because the the issue for me here is trust. Think about it. And I mean, I'm all innovation after all, I'm in the tech world. But when there are no guardrails, like happened in the case of some of cryptocurrency, and they came crashing, and people lost their savings, who protected those people? So we can't run away from guardrails. And that is why data protection is here, to help us build trust. This year's celebration is also significant because tomorrow the CS will be launching the Eldoret Regional Office. I don't know if the head is here, Katumbi? Katumbi, maybe she stepped out. We'll introduce her officially tomorrow. And similar conferences have been held in Kisumu, Nakuru, and Mombasa. This initiative underscores our commitment to extend data protection services throughout the country and raise awareness. And for you to realize how significant it is, in the room, I believe, we have the two, I don't know if Lebuta and Rosemary, you had an opportunity to introduce your two professional organizations. Please stand up, give them the mic. They can say the two professional organizations, just in case you're a data professional privacy, you are interested in joining them, you can introduce.
Okay, so I'm the chairperson of the Data Privacy and Governance Society. This is a society that brings together, currently we have 634 signed up members from public sector, private sector, civil society, academia, and university students. Currently, the university students is University of Nairobi, who we are supporting. They have an essay competition on data privacy. These are our mentees. So what we do as a society, we react. One of the things that we do, I don't know if the commissioner said it, was there when I said it, there are cases that are challenging our space. And those cases, the Data Privacy and Governance Society has entered appearance, and we are protecting our space. There's one challenging the constitutionality of the Data Protection Act by Okiya Omtata. There's a second one recently challenging the constitutional powers of the Data Commissioner. And we as a society, we are saying, that's not what the Constitution provides. We also provide mentorship. The Data Commissioner provided her colleagues to come and mentor us on various issues. We carry out surveys. We've carried out surveys that show us more than 60% of our members are Gen Z. And more than 60% are lawyers. So the issue of tech, the techies are not coming to be our members, and we are working on that. Something else that we are doing, we are releasing a report soon that is going to analyze the decisions by the Data Commissioner. We want to see, what do these decisions mean? What are the percentage of fines? What are the most complaints? And how can our members help themselves, help the organizations comply? We also, in collaboration with the regional and international data protection institutions. And for us, we welcome everybody, whether you have a certification, I usually say whether you have a PhD like me in data protection, or you have no idea what data protection is all about, but you want to learn and to be part of the process, you'll definitely get people who will mentor you, people who will share ideas with you. And for us, is to protect this space and protect the culture with which we've built. Thank you so much, and you're most welcome. We have Rosemary is our vice chair. I think we have our public sector representative. Yes, she's there. She works for the Office of Auditor General. She's called Edith. And we have our Vice Secretary, Philip Kisaka, who's out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, Rosemary.
Thanks, Immaculate, for the opportunity. I must say, I'm in charge of external engagements. The fact that you think I'm the leader means I'm doing a good job. Our leader is here, Fiona Makaka.
Oh, she's here. I didn't see her.
Stand.
Oh.
If you may.
I'm
That's
sorry,
our
Fiona.
chair lady.
No. I'm
Priya,
really sorry.
part of our leadership. Sharon, part of our leadership. Ladies, because I'm the spokesperson, allow me to speak on behalf of us. Yeah, Asante, with your permission, Chair. Granted, Asante. So we're the Kenya Privacy Professionals Association. And what happened is, when the Data Protection Act came in, a number of us were hired to do a job which nobody else in the country had ever done. And it was precedent setting. The law had just been, passed like a year or two before. So we sat together as professionals and said, look, we need each other. Tutaambia nini watu, in case there are questions. So we came together, formed the association, right from telcos to banks and health tech, like Priya. And we've together, over the years, built the professional association. What we do basically is bring together practitioners serving companies and industries that do data protection work. Importantly, one of the key things we've done is engagements, especially with the ODPC. Thank you, Immaculate, for that. We really appreciate. We have trainings, capacity building for our membership, but most importantly, and Mugambi, people would ask, why are there two associations? I think this one, basically, what it does is that represents largely a lot of the private sector interests. The other one is quite multi-stakeholder. Among the key initiatives we've done is to work together to build industry-specific practice. For example, if it's bankers, working together with the Immaculate's office to have guidelines and so on and so forth. So that's basically who we are. We invite any professional serving as a data privacy practitioner to join us. Asanteni sana, and thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak on our behalf.
My sincere apology, Fiona. It's really not nice. You're seated right behind me, and I didn't see you. My apologies. I should have given you the chance. Having said that, I think when I came in, was you seated there? Yeah. Okay, I see. The reason I gave those to speak is so that you see how vibrant this space has become. And I'm so proud. When I speak, I say, imagine one time when when Dr. Gigi came to my office with Rosemary, Laibuta then was a very serious critic of the data protection, by the way. He used to give all, and I used to ask, hey, Laibuta, surely, end up pole pole. But we feel the warmth as an office. And we are very deliberate to bring on board, and I keep saying this, to bring on board stakeholders. And I'm very proud of Irongo because he gave us our first shilling to go and develop our first website. Please clap for this gentleman. We had no money. Him and Al took our staff for 1 week to develop a website for us as an office. So you have worked with us this journey, and I appreciate. The reason why I also call them is also to remind them the only way you can sustain a regulator is resource-wise being independent. And one of the people I'm looking forward to is Kiptum, because he regulates the insurance industry and does not rely on national exchequer. So when we call upon you, the day we start asking for a little shilling from your members, please support us. We just want this institution to be completely independent. I also want to, I can continue just so that I've already spoken a lot about my remarks in terms of why we are here. The awareness creation, I hear you. I think we are not even scratching the surface. Gigi, I hear you when you say Kenyans are not aware. We don't have what we call online hygiene. We don't as a country. We do not understand what we should share and when we are crossing the line between defamation and other treason and also what is national unity. We must go out there and tell people. And I want to challenge us in this space. Let us set aside money to do this, because if we don't, by the way, we are on our own. If we are expecting the West to come and put resources, we thank GIZ for their kindness in terms of supporting most of our initiative. It's not coming. And if we are concerned about the moral degradation or the fact that our youth are freedom of expression, or we want to show them what line they need to draw, we need to go out there and educate. Gigi, I think it's a challenge to us. Irongo, it's a challenge to us. Laibuta is a challenge to us. Fiona, it's a challenge to us. We cannot wait until it is too late. I also want to note that during this session, we have had virtual classes where we had an opportunity to have the general public and government entities, civil society, development partners. Earlier in the morning, we engaged the Fourth Estate, who we also need to appreciate what data protection is about. We also are commemorating this 5 years after the start of data protection in this country. And clap for yourself. I think you are a pace setter. I challenge Dr. Laibuta and team. Kenya is too small. Please, can you go to the rest of Africa? Please, can we go to the rest of Africa? So I want to call upon us as we come to the climax of data protection in the next 2 days. I want to call upon us to reflect on new ways of engaging the public so that we ensure that issues around internet hygiene and privacy become next to none. Because if you look at some of the health campaigns, they've been very effective. And if you ask anybody, they'll speak about their health campaign or things that touch on them. Why can't we get there in as far as data protection and internet hygiene is concerned? The Data Protection, of course, Act gives us an opportunity to reflect on what is expected of us as data controllers, data processors, and that is why we are here. I want to remind us, it breaks my heart. Every time we have to undertake an investigation and it's a specific institution, I ask myself, are we not reading? Are we failing as an office that we are repeating the same concern, or are we underinvesting? I believe we need to invest more as corporates, as government, so that our staff at a very basic understand data protection. And we as an office are committed to this cause. In fact, as part of our commitment, this year we are embarking on a roadmap to make sure we reach as many data controllers in government so that they are able to implement the principles of data protection. We have onboarded different institutions because we realize the uptake is limited. We accredit data controllers, people who can do accrediting and auditing, there's still limited uptake. So we have decided this year to actually invest and bring them to the boardroom so that they are able to foster a culture of data protection in both government and private. Our priority is public sector, because I think there is where there's a bit of lull in terms of appreciating what data protection is. We want you to appreciate so that we have less concerns, because I often say, if we do not ensure the entire ecosystem adheres to the principles of data protection, then we have bigger challenges as a country. But if we ensure that the entire ecosystem, people understand what is data protection, they understand the rights of a data subject, they understand how to report a breach, they understand how to put in place safeguards, they understand where their data is, they understand how to undertake a data protection impact assessment, they understand when to report a breach, they understand the implication of getting fined as a data controller and how they are going to improve their processes. If we understand this, we are improving the data, the ecosystem, and as we improve the ecosystem, we are entrenching trust to our different organizations. It's important that we embrace this. Finally, I want to welcome you all. Please visit the different stands that are here. All these are our partners. They partner with us in terms of educating you how they're ensuring that your data is safe. And also, as I conclude, Waziri and County Commissioner, please allow us to call upon you every so often in our offices so that we're able to bring as many people as possible so that they're able to appreciate this topic of data protection. Thank you for listening. Please do not depart. It's a long day ahead of us. And also tomorrow, we welcome you to the actual official celebration of the Data Privacy Day. Thank you.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The start, the first day. Asanteni sana. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 3 minutes to the top of the hour. We'll give you 15 minutes. We've got lots of things out there. Are you reading? Well, find out from the different exhibition spots out there. 15 minutes. Take a break. Let's come back and kick off with the panel discussions. A lot to learn from. Do we have the timer ready? 15 minutes. Please pace yourselves if you can. Also put a timer as well, an alarm clock. Asante sana. The timer is on. 15 minutes. Tea break. Tea is served. 15 minutes. At the back of this particular dome. There's another dome there. Get your tea. Keep left. Immediately after that, visit the exhibition spots, because when we come back, we'll be having an award ceremony as well, today and tomorrow, asking you simple questions via Menti, so get to learn, get to connect. 15 minutes, take it away. Boom, there you go.
Nyokavias. Please take it. Hi, you're here. Umepiga? Umeipata? Take it. Nikae hapa. It's going to come back. It will come back. Nifuto. Unateremsha hii aro alafu unapiga tena, unaona? Make it.
wanametameta. Hiyo ni baraka kutoka kwa Mungu Baba. Viongozi wetu wote wanametameta. Hiyo ni baraka kutoka kwa Mungu Baba. Viwanda tulivyojenga vinametameta. Hiyo ni baraka kutoka kwa Mungu Baba. Twashukuru Mungu Mwenyezi kwa hayo yote. Hiyo ni baraka kutoka kwa Mungu Baba. Nimeshapa kulinda Kenya, nchi yetu tuliyopewa na Mungu. Nimeshapa kulinda Kenya, nchi yetu tuliyopewa na Mungu. Nimeshapa kulinda Kenya, nchi yetu tuliyopewa na Mungu. Tushangilie Kenya, taifa letu tukufu, Kenya tunayoipenda daima. Kenya nchi tunayoipenda daima. Kenya nchi tunayoipenda daima. Twajivunia sana tukijiita wa Kenya, nchi yenye baraka daima. Kenya nchi yenye baraka daima. Kenya nchi yenye baraka daima. Kenya makao yetu ni nchi ya kupendeza, kamwe hatutaiacha daima. Kamwe Kenya hatutaiacha daima. Kamwe Kenya hatutaiacha daima. Anayependa Kenya ni yule mwenye kutenda haki kwa watu wote daima. Mtu mwenye kutenda haki daima. Mtu mwenye kutenda haki daima. Na ukipenda Kenya ujitengane na mambo yenye kuvunja amani daima. Hatutaki matata Kenya daima. Hatutaki matata Kenya daima. Wenzangu, Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Wenzangu, Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Kenya kipenzi chetu, nchi yenye upendo, hatutaacha Kenya daima na milele. Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Na nikienda ng'ambo sitasahau Kenya, na nitabaki Mkenya daima na milele.
Naomba tusimame, ni Kenya yetu, tusimame. Twende, bas, kila mtu, yacha milele daima. Twende.
Kenya kipenzi chetu,
Haya.
hatutaiacha milele daima. Na tumeapa sote wananchi wa Kenya, kutumikia Kenya daima na milele. Kenya kipenzi chetu,
Njoo magistrate. John, it's okay, ni Kenya yetu. Twende. Njoo. Hatutaiwacha. Njoo.
sitaiacha Kenya nchi
Hey! Mwana Kenya daima.
mambo nitarudi.
Mimi ni mwana Kenya daima.
Sitadanganywa kamwe na wageni.
Mimi ni mwana Kenya daima.
Wenye kuleta chuki kati yetu.
Mimi ni mwana Kenya daima.
Wenzangu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Tushangilie Kenya, taifa letu tukufu. Kenya tunayoipenda daima. Kenya nchi tunayoipenda daima. Kenya nchi
Hata tuzunguke kidogo, ni Kenya yetu. Bas, makofi yao tafadhali. Tutawahitaji tena tuzunguke kidogo. Tuimbe ni Kenya yetu. Makofi yao tafadhali. Millennium champion. When you think of data, your personal data, it's a simple way of telling you you're special, you're important, and this country needs you. And so we want to say thank you so much that you made it and that you're here. Those who are outside, please make your way inside. We are ready to kick off. And we've started in a big way, ready to engage. Ladies and gentlemen, 33 minutes past the hour. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to engage in a panel discussion, then 10 minutes for questions. So for the moderator, please take note. Once you hear this sound, that's the sound of a clock ticking. That means you only have 1 minute to go. And once you, of course, hear this music sound, that means we're winding up. So 30 minutes for the engagement with the panel and 10 minutes for questions from the audience. Questions from the audience will have menti.com so that we can break for lunch in good time and come back and close with the final 2 panel discussions. Menti, do we have it, Menti? Let's have it on the screen just for a moment so that at least any person who joined us later on. Okay, do we have it? Do we have it? Okay, we'll have it splashed on the screen as the panel continues. 34 minutes. Your questions are important. Your thoughts are important. And we want to appreciate that well in advance. Ladies and gentlemen. All right, there you go. So what are your questions, comments? Please take note of the code. The code is 333 18918. 333 18918. Or you can simply scan the QR code. Any questions, please direct them straight to the panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready. Let's have the screen ready. Let's have the screen, let's have the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to our panelists. I'll welcome the moderator, Priya Shah, Kenya Privacy Professionals Association. Makofi yake tafadhali, please welcome. Bonfesa Siligwa, Data Protection Consultant, Shruti Shah, Zamara. Joshua Kitili, CP, Faith Basia, KCB Group, John Walubengo, ODPC. Title, Data Protection Compliance. Challenges and opportunities for data controllers and data processors. Once you start speaking, the clock will start ticking. 30 minutes. Over to you, Priya Shah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know this is not the best time for catching afternoon, so we'll try and keep it short. I think we've already introduced the speakers quickly, but we've got Boniface here who's had 10 years experience as a cybersecurity. He's also the DPO and CISO of Kentrade and the founder of Kentra CyberPsych Limited. So we've got all that experience in hand. We've got Joshua Kitili, who's a researcher, advocate of the High Court, and his main interest is the intersection between data, privacy, artificial intelligence, intellectual property. So we're going to have a really great discussion on that. Shruti Shah, DPO and Group Head of Risk Governance at Zamara. And then we have Faith Basili. She's the group chief risk officer at KCB with 16 years senior leadership experience, extensive risk advisory, compliance, regulatory, cybersecurity, banking, the whole lot. So it will be a great discussion, and you all know John Walubengo, right? Deputy Data Commissioner, Research, Policy and Quality Assurance. He's got tons of experience. So we will just get right into the discussion. Now, the topic today is to talk about the challenges, the opportunities, tech and the intersection between tech and data privacy. So I have a couple of questions that I'll try and speed up because we have a shorter period now. Maybe let me start with Faith. What are the main challenges that data controllers and processors face today? And especially SMEs, when we think about, how do they cope with these challenges?
Thank you, Priya. Is it afternoon?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so around the challenges that are faced, by data controllers and processors, I know in the morning there's been a lot of discussion around tech. So the biggest challenge is data protection. Is the tech engine revving ahead of the legal engine, or do these engines have to run as twin turbo engines? So one of the biggest challenges is just understanding the legal framework around the whole universe of data protection. So even from a data controller perspective and data processor perspective, even as from an organizational level, just trying to understand what are the laws that govern data. I know there was a bit of, when Huta from Amnesty International was here, spoke around the Constitution, but there are very many other laws. So just being able to understand the legal regime, and with all due respect to the very hardwired tech guys, reading the law is not their strength. So it's just to then get that the two engines should be revving at the same time, not having one revving ahead of the other. And then just even the organizations themselves. Is data discussed at boardrooms? Data protection. What level is data protection discussed at? Or does it only happen when the Data Protection Office writes to us? This is the reaction. When the data controller writes to us, it's minuted down. If it goes to the CEO, minuted down to myself, GCRO, and I quickly kick it down to Rosemary, to the head of data protection. Have I understood what is required of me? Do I understand the regime? Do the CEOs understand what is happening in this space? Have we understood as organizations what non-compliance means? What the cost of compliance in the whole sphere? What gaps then do we have? And what is the roadmap? In fact, I'd like to pose this, and this is just for everyone to internalize. If you are responsible for data protection and you do not have a roadmap, I do not understand the discussions that you're having. Because the first step is around the roadmap, then just being able to articulate what is expected of the organization, and just getting your buy-in, getting your voice on the right table, at the right time, at the right pitch.
So like she said, it's weaving privacy into everything, right? It's a new thing that has appeared. It's like you have a building and now you're putting a whole floor in the middle of it, because it cuts across every single process you do, and you can imagine how complex that gets. Maybe Shruti, now for you. As data protection becomes global, how do you see organizations dealing with the challenges that Faith has just put out, and especially the DPOs? How do you see this going? How do you see the organizations coping with these challenges, and especially SMEs, if you can maybe discuss their perspective?
Thanks, Priya. So I think it's been an interesting journey the last few years. There was initially a lot of denial that this act is not even, it's going to get diluted, and then it became initially was a very tick box, right? A lot of organizations you'll speak to will be like, oh, but we've registered with the ODPC. We've done what we need to. We trained our staff in 2020 and that's it. And they've hadn't really embraced it. And I think there's also been a level of compliance fatigue, right? Like we've been through changes I've even lost track, but it was NSSF, SHA, affordable levy, and then tax, all manners of changes. So for a lot of companies, it was like juggling so many compliance balls, with the hope that some of these will get diluted and people will, And so for DPOs, there has been a struggle. I mean, it's really nice to hear, even when Sharon said that the board that she works with, like for them, it's a really big part of data protection. But I think the struggle is real. But now it feels like companies are understanding the act. They're seeing the benefits of embracing the act. And I also think there's no choice. This thing is here. It's going to benefit all of us as individuals. We all want to do business or get products and services from companies that take data privacy seriously, right? I don't want my data to be out there in the public domain. I don't want my kids' photos to be somewhere where I've not consented them to be as well. So that awareness, and thanks to the ODPC, is really making a big difference. But I think the other thing is for a lot of, and even at Zamara, I'll often be asked that, are we done with DPA yet? Are we fully compliant? And I think it's not a switch on. It's not just something you switch on. It's an ongoing thing. It's going to take long. We talked about cultural change. It's as a culture we need to change as well. And it's going to take time, but that doesn't mean we don't start the journey.
No, exactly. And I think, like you said, top-down is always the most effective way. However, because it's a journey, it scares people because they think, okay, so for how long? What is the end? Where are we going with this? So it becomes, and that's the problem, I guess. But slow and steady is what we tell people. Are you doing something every month? Are you changing? Are you addressing? Are you taking a risk-driven approach? Because there's so many things you could be doing, but are you picking the riskiest elements to your business and starting there and constantly taking that approach, right? So maybe we'll focus a little bit on technology now. So Joshua, maybe you can tell us, how can we leverage technology, automation, AI, as much as, they also sound scary from a data perspective. How can we use those to address some of the challenges and to make compliance easier? Because there's real opportunities there.
Thank you, Priya. So for AI, we have seen it has its benefits and also it has its own risks. So one of the things a company or an organization should put in place first is to come up with an AI policy that will guide now that is simple and that employees can use, and that will guide them how to use AI devices or AI tools and all that. And it should adhere to ethical principles, which are like non-discrimination, privacy and security, which mainly deals with now going into how data is collected, how it will be processed and all that. Also accountability, transparency, all these principles, which are very key when dealing with AI tools, AI devices and all that. But then now when it comes to automation, AI can be a very significant tool in terms of compliance. It can help SMEs, especially, so one of the key tools that SMEs can use is data mapping tools, which now helps organizations now be able to identify personal data instead of using manual labor to sieve out which data is personal, which is not. So it helps to cut down manual labor. Another thing will be employing data encryption tools, which are very important, especially in cybersecurity. and this helps to safeguard the data, especially during transfers and all that. Another thing will be to use anomaly detection tools. So this will help, especially if there's an issue with the, that has been detected, especially regarding personal data. So it will help to identify if there's an anomaly, and now enable maybe developers and people behind the scenes now to work out and make the appropriate decisions. The other thing will be data masking and what is it called? Anonymization. So it's very important to, especially when dealing with sensitive personal data, it's very important to conceal or de-identify it from the individuals that have shared their personal data. So having such mechanisms, it will help now the organizations comply and also help them now not to breach any data privacy regulations. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I mean, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of stuff we can do, but that's, again, it has its own privacy implications. Are these tools built with the right amount of data? You know, there's also those aspects. But it definitely has a lot of opportunities to ease some of the work that we painfully have to do manually. So I think they're very excited to see how that space will progress. Maybe for Boniface, what do you see the role of third-party risk management? We've touched on this in the morning, but it's such a crucial part of what we do, especially now when we talk about technology. It means we're partnering with even more tools, and you know, you have to understand what these tools do. So what do you see, how do you see that space, you know, technology growing, all these third-party tools even more important in businesses? How do we ensure that, you know, we're enhancing compliance, and how do you see that evolving?
Okay, yeah. Third-party risk management is a very crucial element of compliance to various data protection provisions and regulations. We've seen enterprises inculcate a culture within the organization itself of privacy protection. You comply to almost everything, but then you leave the aspect of the service providers that you are engaging. I'll give just a simple example. You have some software vendor who provides you a critical, so you've done all other compliance, you've done data privacy impact assessment, you're doing data minimization, but then you miss the element to the outward facing, which is privacy by design from this application. So when you miss it by design from the initial step, you do not consider this vendor as a risk vector, it becomes very expensive for you to come and correct that anomaly. And the onus or the obligation is on the controller, it's not on the service provider. So you are the one as the controller of that data to inculcate a culture of third-party risk management within the enterprise. Because you want to engage vendors who are almost operating at the same level of risk management, privacy-related risk management, at the same level you are. So for you to be able to do that, you need to have a framework in place for third-party risk management. Unfortunately, maybe for the guys in the research sector, up to now, just we are experiencing the same problem we had with M-Pesa, which was an homegrown solution. Now, cyber risks started coming up to M-Pesa. Do you go to European frameworks to seek for guidance on protection of a mobile application, mobile money, which is our own homegrown solution? And it took a lot of time. That's why we are here with this mobile risk that we are facing. Now, with data protection, we are also doing the same thing. Our operative environment is different from European standards. So we don't have up to now, and maybe somebody to challenge me, if there is any third-party risk management framework for data privacy that is domesticated here. We don't have yet. So what are industries now doing? DPOs are just, some would say, in the dark up to now. So you are getting this legislation, try to map it to this technology to see how you can, but there is no guidance per se. Of course, it's a moving target, it's an evolving target, but that's a challenge to this forum. We need to have these kind of frameworks in place, because third-party risk management, if you're not going to take care of it, then it means even if you've invested how much, you're operating at a higher level of compliance, but then the providers that you are engaging are at a lower level. So unless you have this mechanism in place to assess, to identify, first of all, the risks that are posed by the third parties that you are engaging, profile them one by one, then you assess these risks, then you need to allocate resources and provide mechanism to be able to deal with this third-party risk. Otherwise, you will get frameworks, implement them, follow guidance, but then if you are not considering the third-party risk, and this is where the most vectors, both from a cybersecurity perspective and from a data protection perspective, most of organizations fall at not engaging or managing their third-party risk from the supply chain perspective.
And they don't because it's so complex, right? You have providers you get from abroad who will just give you a standard DPA and you just need to accept that. And yes, you look at the reputation of it is a complex area, but an area that we all need to prioritize as we think of all our mapping. We also need to think of our vendor mapping and the risk levels assigned to these various vendors, right? So maybe let's look, in view of time, let's look a little ahead. So I'd like John Walubengo to tell us what does the next 5 to 10, we're already grappling with a lot of issues. Of course, a lot has been done. The fact that we're having these discussions, people have now actualized the act and have started looking and putting structures in place. What can you see the next 5 to 10 years looking like? And especially now with that futuristic view, how do we address the tight balance that we're in, addressing risks, compliance fatigue, innovation, entrepreneurship? You know, that combination would be really great to hear.
Thank you. Before I sort of think about the future, just to add on what Boniface has said about third parties, I think there's provision in the Act on how to manage the data processors, the people you subcontract to, process the data on your behalf. But the practice, I mean, as SMEs or as businesses, they haven't really actualized that. So it's a new area from the point of view of practice, but you mentioned legalese. The legal framework is, I think, fairly clear on what is expected. You're supposed to have signed data protection agreements or data processing agreements with your third parties, and so there is already the legal framework for it, but the practice, I'm aware it's probably not being done. Now, in terms of the future, the technology is moving very fast, of course, faster than the legalese. And it's not so futuristic. I think last year, or was it the year before, when WorldCoin happened, for the office, that was, the reality where tech meets the law. Because WorldCoin is a technology that has so many dimensions that are not just limited to privacy. It has the cryptocurrency component that doesn't fall under the domain of the office. It's something to do with central bank. And of course, they didn't have any guidelines apart from circulars saying don't touch crypto. So going forward, when it comes to regulation, we see sort of a joint regulatory approach. There is no one single regulator, whether it's central bank or ODPC or communication authority, that would have sufficient mandate to deal with an emerging technology. So from a regulatory point of view, there is need to have a joint approach. And if we don't have that, then new technologies will always catch us off guard, and then we start the blame game. This is your mandate. No, it is yours. No, it isn't. But the whole thing is here with us. So from a regulatory point of view, joint regulation is the only way to deal with emerging technologies. Now, in terms of balancing regulations and innovation, again, that's an important thing, because the typical reflex action for regulators when they don't understand the technology is to block it. Yeah. So you look at the law and find a way to stop the action or the game. But going forward, and I see our sister regulator, Communication Authority, has what we call a regulatory sandbox. This is an approach where innovators are invited to bring their innovation sort of in a test bed with the regulator. You're given 3 to 6 months in a controlled environment, execute. This gives an opportunity for the innovator to understand the regulatory requirements and the regulator to understand the innovation. And then once you graduate from the regulatory sandbox and go into the market, everybody's interests are are addressed. So for example, for regulators, it's mainly consumer concerns. How is consumer data protected by this new technology? So going forward, to balance innovation with regulation is through regulatory sandboxes. Thank you.
Yeah, and many countries like the UK have done this very successfully. It encourages and it gives these innovators time also to understand the if you're a new entity, and I've worked for MTBA, which was new. You're still setting up your model, but you've got all this regulation to think about, right? So it also gives them some breathing space to embed it, and the right time to do it is while they're still developing their so privacy by design and encouraging that. So those sound really great. I can already see the time is running, but I have one question for Joshua. Do you anticipate stricter regulation or more harmonization? Because I think what John has talked about is collaboration. More collaboration can also be through different countries, sort of streamlining their regulations so that it's easier for companies that have multiple, operations in multiple countries. But do you anticipate, or how do you like to see this balance? Stricter regulation, more harmonization, and what do these two have as impact on organizations?
All right, thank you. So I look at it at the 2 points: stricter regulations and harmonized regulations. So if there are stricter regulations, this will mean that there'll be it will be a burden to organizations, because it will be more complex to comply with such regulations. One of the things that might happen is that there will be increased costs because they'll need more resources to ensure that they comply with these strict regulations. Some might also be necessitated to employ like a data protection officer, to especially the small organizations, in order to comply. Another thing will be there'll be need for regular training in order to ensure that employees and people involved in personal data comply with the regulations. So regular training will be necessitated. Another thing that will be positive on that side will be there will be an improved incident response, because organizations will try their best to comply with the laws that have been passed. On the other side, harmonization will be good because there will be less complexity, since jurisdictions will be able to work together. Also, there will be a benefit in terms of cross-border data flows, which is very important, especially for businesses. Another thing will be, I think it has escaped my mind, yeah. But overall, I think there will be maybe countries themselves, individual countries or jurisdictions might have stricter regulations, but now regionally there'll be more a harmonized approach, yeah. But now looking forward, it will be necessary for organizations now to work with policymakers in order to come up with these regulations and laws, so that there's a balance, yeah, in terms of compliance.
Okay. I think we can now go around and give the speakers a chance to add on some of the things that we won't be able to tackle through questions. So I'll start with Boniface, going down that way, so you can have a bit more time to give a few of the points that you may not have had a chance to, in view of the shorter time we had.
I'll just be back on the element of innovation and regulation. These two elements intermarry, and the initial fear is usually regulations are there to curtail innovation. But the fact is, regulations are there to assist innovation. An example, when the General Data Protection Regulations came about in the EU market, there was a hue and cry, even here. But then, over time, the partnership started happening between the innovators and regulators. And it has resulted to a more even advanced in the fintech, in the digital banking sector, where now it materializes something called the open banking. Now where there's massive data sharing between financial institutions, but with the consent and following the various privacy laws that have now enabled inclusions, digital banking inclusion or finance inclusion for people who have not generally accessed certain services because of their financial status within the economy. So innovation and compliance to regulations are two things that must go hand in hand, and they both regulations promote innovation because they protect both parties at par. So we should be viewing it from that perspective and not from what Walu is saying. The initial state of regulators is, first of all, new technology, block it. And the initial, also the normal response now for the data subjects is a complaint that this technology is going to be invasive. But on the contrary, both those two aspects complement each other.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So the guardrails we talked about earlier, it's nice to work when you have the guardrails, right? You know what your limits are, and that's the advantage. Joshua, you.
Sorry, I don't know if I have much to add, but what I'll say is going forward, it will be necessary for organizations to move with the times. Because right now we are moving towards an AI space, which is moving very fast. And organizations need to either take advantage of this and also ensure that even as they take advantage of this, they should ensure they are following the ethical AI principles so as to protect users of these platforms and to ensure that especially privacy and data security is complied with. Also they'll need to emphasize more or take into consideration the data protection principles, which are very necessary, especially when dealing with personal data. So all these all these factors need to be considered as we move forward into the AI revolution. Yeah.
I like the principle-driven approach because irrespective of which regulation you're looking at, it covers your activities very broadly, and the principles are a really good place to start, whether it's the AI or the data protection ones. Shwari?
Thanks. I think just to add, I think a lot has already been said, is that we are living in this age where we keep getting told data is oil, and if we're not going to harness the power, then we're going to be left behind, right? So the companies of the current big techs are all your Ubers, Facebooks, and all they're doing is sharing data. So we need to use this data, whether it's data analytics, machine learning, whatever, but we need to make sure we're doing it in the right way and not shying away from looking at regulations. So making sure we're we're embedding privacy by design and by default. And rather than just, tick box, I think it's really important to embrace some of these.
Yeah, I'd like to then just bring in the importance of strengthening the governance structures around data protection. So most of the time, as most of us have discussed, we look at data protection sometimes from a very isolated space and try to really put it in a silo, that data protection, and I know there's that tension. Is it IT to run with it? Is it risk to run with it? Is it legal? Is it compliance? Is it operations? Is it first line? Is it second line? Should it even be swimming with audit, So it's important to just strengthen the governance structures around around that. And then the other key component around, and I think in the first panel, there was the issue of mistrust by our customers, and I can see Sharon looking at me. So just the issue of the customer and the customer education. So I think this thing of, you know, when the Gen Z says, oh, Safaricom gave our location, oh, the utility guys gave our information, and now swinging back into my space, which is then the banking space. So I know we usually have a lot of drama around election time where somebody says my statement was given to my opponent, but yet people do not understand. Some of them go to Shylocks to borrow money and leave their statement there. So just even as a customer, as a citizen, how then do we act responsibly and protect ourselves? Because organizations, service providers, we're really talking around this data protection, wanting it to be everyone's business, but then we forget our customer base. So then just taking that training and awareness from within us and take it to without us, and it goes other than just the service providers, it also goes then to the customer who's the subject and the person who will potentially sue you. Because sometimes, and I'm sure the Office of the Data Protection Officer has seen very frivolous suits. I have seen some where if the customer just knew something more and had better education, they'd have had a successful suit. So, yeah.
For me, the one thing, that was time, eh? The one thing I wanted to talk about that we probably didn't is on privacy technology. There are several tools out there that data protection officers will use, but my caution now, wearing my other industry experience, is that don't jump into a technology solution when you haven't, for example, put into place the governance structure, you know. So you just go buy an expensive tool and say, oops, we've solved all our compliance requirements. It doesn't work that way. It is better you do the heavy lifting, whether it's training, putting in the governance structures, making employees understand their obligations, and down the line, then you automate that. But if you start automating something that doesn't exist, then you run into big trouble. Thank you.
And every organization's approach is slightly different, right? So also these tools don't always mirror or meet your needs. So you do need to define your need and then see what's out there. But I think as you were all speaking, I was reflecting, this is why KPPA came about. Imagine the DPO's role with all the things we've talked about. Governance, I mean, many of them are not even reporting to their CEOs. They could be reporting way lower, or to the IT, head of IT or head of legal. So try and imagine them trying to make this work with all the different components that have to come together for privacy to work within an organization. You have to touch operations, you have to touch customer service, you literally have to be embraced across the organization, and only if you're empowered by your CEO, you know, from the leadership, by your board, can this happen? And is everybody in the organization accountable? Does it even appear in anybody's JD, for example, that they need to be, you know, working with you? And many times I find you're literally pushing people to do things to help you because it's not their job. So it's a complex area, and I think we're right on time.
Right. 10 minutes for questions from the audience now. Questions from the audience? Let's take all the questions and then we'll only have 10 minutes. Go ahead. 1 minute, please.
Thank you. I think I'll direct this question to Mr. Boniface. You've mentioned on third-party risk management and how more and more companies should embrace it as opposed to just shifting attention to the first-party kind of coverage. So my question to you is this. Given the scenario, particularly in tech startups and the fintech sector as it is presently in Kenya, how viable is third-party risk insurance or cyber risk insurance as an option in company as it is today in being as part of the approach in that third-party management? Thank you.
Duke, did I see you? Okay, good.
Thank you. Mine is to ask, this is what I experienced recently. Someone applied for a job in our company, and he didn't, or she didn't qualify for the job. Then what happened, she wrote an email that kindly remove my data from your systems. Now, I'm there as a data protection officer, and I'm wondering, there's a regulation on retention, when we should retain data for people who apply, for instance, for jobs. At the same time, there is the consent of the person who has applied. So which one should take preference? Are we going to delete the data of this applicant, or we retain, because it is in the law, it is in the regulation that we have to retain some of the data for a certain period of time? Thank you.
My name is Byron Ambrose from Moi University. My question goes to Mr. Walubengo. Recently, we heard the government wants the social media companies to set up physical offices. So my question is, will this be a threat to Kenyans who have right to access information? Because we feel like the government will be able to control this information in the social media offices. Secondly is, will this right to openly talk about what affects Kenyans, like what Gen Zs do, will this be a way to curtail Gen Z not to critique the government? Thank you.
My name is Martin Kilungu. My question goes to the Deputy Data Commissioner on the public sector. Are you being too lenient to the public sector? Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Sydney. My question goes to Walu. We have had cases where companies feel that the compliance with the DPA or the ODPC office is quite challenging, and they are thinking of opting for an insurance to cover them when such happens. Will you advise that? Number two goes to Boniface. We understand in other jurisdictions, third parties have a collaborative tool that is used to assess them, especially in Europe. Would you be advocating the same, that maybe with the support of the regulators, that in Kenya we also come up with a tool that can be used to assess most of these third-party vendors? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Because of time, let's look at Menti. First question on educational institutions. I'd ask that, can we, through empowerment, be able to protect our own data, especially due to the fact that we handle parents and students' information, or do we need to hire? Next question. Conversation around data privacy protection and compliance can be a bit complex at the beginning. Is there a list of DPO trainers for 2025, and is it accessible to the public? And a final question here. How can businesses and organizations balance using data for growth and innovation while staying compliant with data protection laws? After all, data is the new oil. 10 minutes, please. Go ahead. We'll hand it over to Priya.
Okay, we can start with the questions were specifically directed to specific individuals, and let's see how we get along. So Boniface, you can go.
Yeah, thank you for that question on third-party risk management. Now, when you talk about insurance, insurance protects you when a risk has already materialized, right? So it is at there, but there are various practices that you need to inculcate in place for you, even after you have assessed the third-party risk and you have a risk acceptance criteria within your organization. What is your risk appetite? It's supposed to be looked from a risk-based perspective. So once you've identified that, is when you can decide the risk mitigation mechanism. And that's where insurance comes in place. And there are insurance companies in this country right now who are offering cyber insurance. But it's at the point of, first of all, assessing, knowing who do you share your data with from the third parties? Which kind of data do you share? What risks can materialize when sharing this data or when processing this data through third parties? Once you've done that, then considering from a risk-based perspective the risk capital of the organization, now you can opt. There are some of them you decide to implement controls, both technical and organizational controls, to be able to mitigate those risks. And at those risks, you can say now, this risk now we can insure ourselves against. Should it materialize? Should it have? We are now operating in a highly risky environment where even if we put up these controls, a cyber breach can happen, a data breach can happen. And once this data breach can happen, these are the losses we can incur in the event a lawsuit happens. There is a massive reputation damage. It's not about only monetary or through fines. There's also the element of reputation damage. So we can't afford this. And then we can now get an insurance to cover us and protect us in the event this risk materializes. So that was the first question. The second question was collaborative tools. We live in the age of AI. There's massive data that is being collected. And any organization currently that is not leveraging on data to provide a service or to provide innovative products will be left by the competition, or either its reputation, or just be a failure. So we can't wish away the power of data. Now, there are collaborative tools outside there. In fact, one of the best ways to do third-party risk management is to use some frameworks and tools that use AI capability and big data analytics, and to provide you with an aspect of doing continuous monitoring on your risk profile from a data privacy perspective. Yes, you can use those technologies, but also you need a still to access those technologies so that also they don't put you in a way that you end up using now invasive technologies to monitor some elements of personal data of your data subjects. So it's a balance. But the fact is, at one point, if you are processing large sorts of data and you have that 360-degree visibility and respond adequately and timely on data-related breach instances, then you need to use these collaborative automated tools.
I think I picked a question from Duke Poa. The issue of right to be forgotten vis-a-vis, other legal requirements not to forget that data. I think the first thing you probably need to do is a data map of your data, in the sense that there are certain data sets that other legislation require for you to keep. And then there are those that you as an organization you are at liberty to determine how long you keep it. So for example, if you left a company and then you write to the HR that they should delete your P9 or your payroll details, the HR will not do that because there are other laws that require him or her to keep that data. Is it for 7 or so years? But then there's this other data that can be deleted immediately the purpose is completed. For example, if you are on a hiring cycle and it has come to an end, your policies should dictate, is it 3 months when you delete that data, or is it immediate? So you cannot rely on the 7-year legislation to say we're holding candidates' data for 7 years. So you need to probably drill down to the category of data you're looking at. There was a question from Moi University with respect to requirement for big tech to have physical presence and whether that is designed to curtail freedom of expression. And I'm speaking from the experience of WorldCoin. They don't have a physical presence here. And that was one of the, flack the office got. Why did you give a data controller certificate to somebody who has no physical presence? And the law did not, at that time, require physical presence anyway. And there are always pros and cons. If you require every company to be present in your jurisdictions before they operate, it can work against you. in the sense that they begin to choose which territory to operate in. But to answer your question, the issue of freedom of expression is guaranteed in the Constitution. So whether the office is here or not, as a citizen of Kenya, that right is protected, and if somebody violates it, we hope the courts of law will adjudicate and give it the proper justice. There was a common question we get, is the office very lenient to our public sector agencies? And the answer to that is not really. I know we perhaps don't publicize the internal sort of consultations we have with some of the critical actors that hold citizen data, but I can assure you that the same laws that private sector is expected to, are subjected to, is the same one we communicate with our public sector agencies. But beyond that, we are doing aggressive training to the public sector, particularly this current year. We have mapped out the critical players and saying, instead of waiting for them to make a mistake, they need to have capacity within themselves to preempt the mistake, so that it's not a policing action, it's rather the realization from their own side that we as KRA, or we as Ministry of Health, or we as Ministry of Agriculture cannot do that. We shouldn't be doing that in the first place. So that is sort of the approach we're trying to take. Having said that, Kenyan citizens can go to court. You know, there's this thing they call public litigation. So it's not just the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner that is mandated to protect you. The courts of Kenya are always available. If you think we've slept on the job, you still have Plan B. Thank you.
All those questions. Maybe the question on students and schools, because Shruti and I have had several conversations about that. Maybe she wants to touch on it. It's more about how should should schools be handling this, because they handle parents' data, they handle student data. I don't see it any differently, but maybe just to touch on some of the things we've been discussing.
And I think, yeah, it is a bit more complicated. But going back to, I think it all starts with the data mapping, understanding what data, why. And data mapping, honestly, can be a very, very painful exercise. It's a tedious exercise. No one loves it, right? I don't know anyone who does. It is a lot of work, but the value it gives is immense, right? Because it helps you understand why you're picking up this data, right? That CV that you're keeping, or a child's artwork, what's your basis for keeping it, right? And then from that can drive so many things. With schools, one of the big things that seems to come up a lot is photographs, not just with schools, just generally, but even more with schools, especially given, who's giving the consent. Is it the parents? And then this is even more sensitive given it's children's data, and how do you use that? And I think it's, making sure you're being very transparent on how you're doing it.
Yeah, and in the end, you need to map everything you do against these principles that we keep talking about, right? Then it just makes it a lot clearer. And it's not as simple as that. But, if you go down that route of mapping and checking what's the legal basis, who's the data subject here, all those things that we do, it is painful, but like you said, the value, that's when you see the clarity. It is otherwise very conceptual and very difficult to kind of think it through without the mapping. And mapping works across the board, whether it's vendor mapping, whether it's mapping of your policies, whether it's your data retention schedules, your data mapping to see, what are you holding and how are you managing it. So I think we'll close this by saying documentation, guys. We don't like it, but it's seriously big in data protection. That's where you start if you haven't done any other things. Yes?
Through the chair of the panel. So there was a question that came up on how businesses can balance data for business growth and data protection. And I think we grapple with this every day in the banking sector. Just leave alone around business growth. So when we are going to recover debt, we've outsourced that function to some credit guys who'll call you, where? Wakazi. You know, you even, you know, you think you're, I mean, they sound like the guy who's about to abduct you, you know, the next minute, you know. So it's really important for organizations to really, really, first and foremost, understand the provisions of the rights of its customers and its employees. So even if, let's say, I've given my data is seated in HR, does the auditor have the right to know my health data? I'll give you a funny joke. So one day this guy calls me. I know he's from a medical insurance company, and he tells me, oh, now I know you're single. A guy, I think, you know those guys you know from your social circles, not too well, but what did my organization do? When they're looking for a health policy, as opposed to sending out just the number of adults, the number of children to be covered, I think somebody in HR did that lazy thing and send out, so I don't even know. So, and the guy took a nice screenshot and sent to me. And you know, so it's just that alignment and understanding on a need to know basis. So even for business growth, we are big about cross-selling. So if I give you my data for opening the account, do I give you a right to give the DSR, the sales guys, to keep chasing me to sell me a card, to hawk me a loan, you know? So it's really, really important for organizations to really think deeply, because it's just that our customer base, our populace, is not that aware. You see right now the constitutional rights are there. So you see even when you're on the streets picketing, we know haki yetu. A time will reach for organizations when everyone knows haki yetu. So you will not have, I mean, can you imagine me standing in court saying, we needed to sell a card, a credit card. You know, you look very stupid. But at the time when you're doing it, it makes a lot of sense. It's about chasing targets, but look at the rights. Data protection is going to be the next big thing that's going to mess you up. And just to touch on the insurance, I mean, let me tell you, you don't take insurance for an event to happen. I'm in the middle of one of the biggest. I'm trying to chase claims. There's something called contributory negligence. So if you never put in place any system, any structure, any protective structure, you'll have contributed to that insurance 100%. You'll get zero.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a great discussion. I think if I want to leave you with a few words, it's privacy by design, and it's all this documentation that we've talked about. We cannot do much if we don't start there. We need to embed, like Faith said, into everything we do. We need to think about the customer. We need to think about the why we collected, the what we're going to do with it, and how long we're keeping it. All these things that we've talked about in other aspects of our business, right? It's not like we've not had these discussions on other fronts. It's just that privacy's made it, brought it to center stage. So thank you very much. This has been a great discussion. Thank you so much for the questions. And we look forward to more deliberations on these very great topics. Thank you.
Excellent. A big round of applause to the moderator and the panelists. Thank you so much. And we do have a gift of appreciation. Asante sana. All right, there we go. Exactly 31 minutes past the hour. 31 minutes past the hour. Ready for lunch? When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, 2 more panel discussions. We hope to close by exactly 5 p.m. So please be here on time so that we keep time. so that we give you time to also enjoy the beautiful atmosphere of Eldoret. Makofi yao nyingine tafadhali, asanteni sana. Do we have the timer ready? 1 hour. Let's meet here at exactly 2:30 p.m. to kick off our third panel discussion. 60 minutes. Please have that as a timer. 60 minutes. You save time, we save time here as well. So thank you so much indeed. Let's meet at 2:30 p.m. And if you are missing your hotel room key, please meet Mr. Yusuf here. Your hotel room key. Just check it, check it, check it, check it, check it. In the meantime, timer. Oh, let's have the timer roll. Fantastic. Thank you so much. 2:30 p.m. it is. Asanteni sana. Same place where we took our tea break. Same place. So head right there for your lunch. Thank you so much. Melissa. Okay. In the meantime, please visit the exhibition spots as we welcome you for lunch. It's all right. So please visit the exhibition, the exhibitors ready for you before you go for lunch. There's a reason why. Go to the exhibition spots. And by the way, we'll be having a quiz later on, and tomorrow we'll be giving awards. So depending on the different exhibitors you talked to, we'll have a simple quiz. So get ready, get the names of the exhibitors, and we might just ask a question in regards to them. But in the meantime, 2:30 p.m. we meet here to kick off the final installment of the day. Asante sana.
Lazizi wangu we, zawadi nono kutoka mbinguni.
We may kindly take our seats. Thank you so much. Wow. 1 minute past the hour. As we said, we need to close by exactly 5 p.m. or earlier. For the panelists and the moderators, once you hear this sound, that's a clock. That means you only have 1 minute. 30 minutes to engage the panelists and 10 minutes to engage questions from the audience. At this particular time, I'll call forth the panelists in this panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, the role of technology in enhancing data privacy and security. A big round of applause to the panelists: Fiona Makaka, Amazon; George Kisaka, Isaka, Kenya; Jacqueline Buru, Metrofile; Emmanuel Kato; Ezra Mokua, moderated by Rehab Juma, Communications Authority. Makofi yao tafadhali, makofi yao tafadhali. Rehab Juma, once you're ready, take it away, 30 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. So I'd like to welcome you to this panel discussion where we're going to be talking about the role of technology in enhancing privacy and security. And if the MC will allow me, unfortunately we had a representative from the ministry. He's been unable to join us. So we requested Mr. Walubengo to actually come in and join us in this panel conversation. So a round of applause for Walu. Thank you, Walu, for stepping in. So we are going to be talking about the role of technology in enhancing privacy and security. And in the digital age, we have ushered in a wave of incredible technological advancements that are revolutionizing the way we are working and also the way we live and how we interact. So technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning and the Internet of Things and also blockchain have transformed how industries across the globe are enabling smart systems to work and operate more efficiently. So we are going to explore issues and also critical questions such as how can we protect personal information in the face of increasingly complex technologies? How can the existing privacy frameworks that have been adopted be amended to actually keep in pace with the rate of innovation that we are currently seeing? And lastly, what is the role of emerging technologies in creating a balance between innovation and also privacy? So we welcome you to join these conversations. For any questions that you may have, please feel free to throw them to our panels once we finish the moderated session. So welcome. So I'll start off with my first question, and I'll direct this question. Maybe before we start off, I'll give members of my panel an opportunity to introduce themselves and what they do. We can start off here with Mr. Walubengo.
Thank you. I'm back again, John Walubengo, ODPC. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Fiona Makaka, Security Assurance Lead for Sub-Saharan Africa in Amazon Web Services.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Is that better?
Yeah.
George Kisaka is my name. I'm the Vice President at ISACA Kenya chapter.
Good afternoon, Jacqueline Buru, CEO, Metrofile.
Good afternoon, Ezra Mukua, Britam Compliance.
So thank you. So I'll start off with my first question, and I will pose my first question to Philip Kisaka. So how are technologies such as AI and also machine learning impacting data privacy in this day and age?
Okay, so thank you. I don't know, I'm having challenges with this. But you can hear me, right? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so thank you. I think when you talk about technologies like AI and machine learning, and my good friend Boniface Asiligwa in the morning sessions actually gave quite a bit in this space or in this area. There's a myriad of ways they're challenging actually privacy and all that. So I'm going to add just one or two, probably invite my colleague also to bring in one or two other areas, just to jog your mind around what these technologies, how these technologies are actually affecting or challenging data privacy. So one would be, just like when you grew up all the way to what you know today, you learned a lot of things and you learned them with personal information of people as part of the learning process. We need to do the same for when we are training our machine learning models, because the training cannot be holistic or wholesome without the bit that is personal information that needs to come into these models. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we want to moderate that and say that we need to put guardrails and everything about the PII that we are feeding into these models. So therein lies a challenge. You can't train a model without PII. When you're throwing in PII in there, then issues of consent and lawful basis and everything come into place. So it becomes a challenge. I mean, what goes before the other? So that is one. Secondly, in this space, there's a lot of auditing of what these models are doing and what information or decisions they are making. Now, when an AI model gives a decision about something, not many of them will give the rationale behind how they arrived at that decision, or even the sources of information that was used, that were used to give that, to end up with that decision. So that also becomes an issue. When an auditor comes tomorrow and asks you, why did you pick supplier A instead of supplier B, and you say, I used ChatGPT, it didn't fly, it didn't hold water. So that's also another area of challenge that you can see in this space. And third, which maybe should have been even the first one, is with any technology, there are very many use cases, benefits of using these technologies, but then there's also the downside. There's also the negative side of it. There's also misuse. For instance, say we're using AI to do facial recognition for identification of persons, maybe when accessing some resources or something somewhere. There's also the bad guys who are trying to use this same AI to defraud you of whatever it is that you have by, by impersonation and things like that. You have information about what your image would look like. So if somebody can present something to the model that would mimic your image and it's not you, then you can actually gain access to what crown jewels are there without actually being the actual person. So there's a misuse also. And there's many actually, but let me stop at that.
Bengo, what other challenges do you think AI and machine learning pose to the world of privacy and data protection in this day and age?
Yeah, just to add on to what Kisaka has contributed, probably by way of example, because when we talk of AI, some of us imagine it's something very remote, but it's actually not complicated. And most of the corporates are already using AI. So the example I usually give is HR recruitment process. Nowadays, if you advertise for a job, maybe CEO or IT director, whatever, you probably get 10,000 applications. And as a HR manager, you don't have time to read 10,000 CVs. So what you'll probably do is use a software, tell candidates to apply online. And once their CVs are in, you apply an AI, algorithm to filter out maybe the 2050 or the top 30, and then that is what you look at. So AI makes processes more efficient. But here comes the challenge. The AI tool you have used was trained. Okay, there's a process of how those things are built. And it was probably trained to look for IT directors based on an existing database of IT directors. Turns out that most IT directors are male. I mean, it's a science discipline, and it's a fact of life that it's dominated by the male community. So because the AI was trained to look for male candidates for IT director, what it then does is that it discriminates against women. And the shortlist it gives the HR director will be biased against women. And that's not a good thing, because now you have baked in historical injustices into this AI. And so what the law says, I mean, from a data privacy perspective, is that whenever you're using automated decision-making tools, like the one I've given example of, you need to have certain processes, impact assessment of this new tool being one of them, but more importantly is to provide a complaints mechanism where female candidates who feel they do qualify may have in error been denied the opportunity to be IT directors. So do SMEs or do corporates have sort of human in the loop whenever they're using AI solutions? Do corporates also alert candidates that they are using an AI solution so that they can then be able to launch an appeal process? And do corporates then have that appeal processes? Because AI is not without error. AI make mistakes. So from a regulatory point of view, that is the expectation. There's a section that says if you're using automated decision making, there are certain steps you must then kick in, and if you don't, then you're in violation. Thank you.
For that insight, it's interesting that we call in for the requirement for a human being to intervene whenever a decision is being made by AI. In instances where the individual might feel that they were discriminated against. And also, I was just going through the most recent developments and also what's been happening in the AI space. I don't know whether you've seen this, but there's a court case that has been brought against a specific AI company. So in essence, what happened is someone used artificial intelligence and they pretended that they were Brad Pitt. So on that basis, they were actually able to con a woman, a French woman. I think the amount was close to 830,000 euros. So this person, in essence, if you remember the scammer, people are now using AI to scam individuals, and I pretend that I am a specific individual and I'm able to get money out of you. So I like the perspective that we've gotten from our panelists, because one of the guidelines that regulators are pushing for, especially when it comes to regulation of social media spaces, is that can we have content that has been generated using AI? Can it be marked that whenever you're interacting on social media, you know that this content is actually AI generated and it's not real content? Yeah. So I'll go on to the next question, and I'll pass this one to Ezra. From your perspective in the private sector and also being in the insurance space, what unique challenges do you think emerging technologies pose, especially when we look at Internet of Things and also smart devices? So for example, I am seeing everybody on my panel has a smartwatch. Should we expect the service provider, in this case Britam, to be monitoring us and know whether we are walking 15,000 steps a day or not?
Thank you, Rahab, for that interesting perspective. I think that's the future, but then the question is, if you look around, if you have, let's say you have a Samsung smartwatch and you have a smart TV and you have a smartphone, so they're all connected. So it means AI is able to collect data at a real time. So I think some of the unique challenges that are coming on board is over collection of data, because even you find that AI, we're able to collect vast amounts of data. And I believe most of us and relate to the fact that if you have a Google, let's say Google account, sometimes you receive your photos going 10 years back, you know, and they make a slideshow. Now the question is that how is that data actually protected? From an insurance perspective, I guess there could be those collaborations with some of those providers, let's say Google, but then the question is, will there be discrimination, as earlier pointed out? Because as you all know, it's being trained on a specific data set. But things are actually doing what? Changing. What happens to the user who doesn't use the smartwatch often, or changes, let's say you're using Samsung and you're using another brand, are there different technologies? What is the impact? So for me, I feel one of the challenges that are coming on board is over collection of data, real-time processing of data, which could also infer sensitive data. For example, we are hearing that from the space where by just how you type in the keyboard, the number of steps you make, and also the kind of your heart rate, they can actually even predict if you have a certain disease, or even if you're pregnant. So those questions are emerging, and now there are those questions, health concerns that are coming. How do we embed in this ever-changing space? And also the other aspect I'll talk about is inadequate security. Now, let's say if you're talking about Google, it's a global platform. It can be hacked from everywhere, South Korea, Kenya. So how do you develop security to cover such spaces? These are actually unique challenges. So I guess that's how I look at it, yeah.
Maybe to Kisaka as well, what unique challenges from a technical perspective do you think that we are likely to face with emerging technologies such as Internet of Things?
I think I'll pick it from where Mokua left. So on the security aspect. Yeah, he's talked about Google from the provider point of view, but also many of these technologies are created to fit in very small, ubiquitous devices all over the place. Your remote control, your refrigerator, your watch, and all that. And so in the developing of these devices, what is looked at is actually the usability, the use case, and not security. And so just like they say, for security, the weakest link of the chain is where a hack happens or whatever it is happens. That device, that watch you're wearing, that was not designed with security in place, that remote control that is ordering for you new batteries for your Amazon Fire Stick, when they're old, when they're worn out, is the weakest point, and it was not designed with security as one of the design requirements. Basically, privacy by default, privacy by design was not considered when doing the design of that thing. Their servers and everything are secure, but that small device in your house, is it as secure? So I think that's one big one.
Thank you for that. I like the examples that you've given, security and usability, and also the concept of putting privacy by design and by default in the forefront whenever you're designing this system. And this reminds me of an advert I saw a while back. It's about smart technology, smart homes. So in essence, what happens is there's this gentleman, he lives in a smart home, and then he has a dentist appointment scheduled in the morning. So his alarm wakes him up, his shower turns on automatically, he has an overview of everything that he has in his fridge, breakfast is prepared, he leaves the house and goes to see the dentist. And you know what happens whenever you go to see the dentist? Most likely you'll get a numbing injection. So when he comes back, he's unable to speak. And the challenge with that is his home is controlled by using voice. So the only way he can be able to unlock his house is he has to speak. Unfortunately, if you've been to the dentist and maybe you're getting a root canal, you know your voice changes after some time. So in essence, the advert was saying the traditional way is better. So maybe this is something for ICT practitioners and even us in the privacy space, that's something we need to keep in mind whenever we are talking about innovative technologies and also emerging technologies. We need to use real case examples so that these technologies can benefit us. So the next question I'll ask to Fiona, and it relates to the complexities of cross data flows. So you sit in a very unique situation because the organization you work for operates in different jurisdictions. So how are you able to balance the compliance requirements, for example, in Kenya, in South Africa, in the EU, and in the US, where the legislation in certain instances can be extremely different and the compliance requirements are clearly far apart?
Thank you, Rahab, for that question. I think this is an opportune time to discuss such a thing. It's very relevant because it not only affects us, but anyone who has a regional presence, anyone who has a global presence, and quite frankly, even those who, just operate within Kenya, but have a situation where you have customers abroad, or you have partners abroad, or service providers abroad, are affected by this. So increasingly, it has become a customer pain point or concern. So I'm quite excited to discuss this and see how we can go forward. So one of the complexities that come with cross-border data transfer is what you've mentioned, where the law is different, yeah? Although data protection and cybersecurity principles are largely the same globally, you will find a situation where you have one country that only requires you to notify the ODPC. Another country requires you to get approval. Yet another country will say if you've qualified, if you've put cybersecurity controls and you have a legal basis, then you can go ahead, unless it is a complex issue. So you have a situation where, let's say it's a player, a stakeholder in the FSI industry, a bank, for example, that has regional presence. You have to send information to, let's say, Zambia, Uganda, Ethiopia, and you have to comply with all those. and this is PII that's required for various purposes. So in that situation, one of the setbacks that a lot of our partners or our customers, organizations in general, face is, someone talked about this regulatory fatigue, the compliance burden, because you have to comply with 40 laws. And what happens then is it affects service delivery. Something that you deliver in one day and the transaction goes through, then you have to have this compliance and get consent and all these things. So now the delivery period now goes to a month. The other setback that comes with that is the increasing cost. All of us know compliance is expensive. It requires changes and enhancement in processes, enhancement in technology sometimes. Also, the other thing is regulation is not static. Walubengo and team came up with a data sharing code the other day. So it keeps changing, and every time it changes, you have to. So it is a costly situation where you have all these things. Then when all those setbacks are there, you find a situation where companies are also limited in flexibility or decide not to go ahead with some innovations simply because they will require a lot of budget in terms of cost, the regulatory landscape as well, and if you don't comply, then there's a reputational angle. So just to paint a picture of how it can affect an organization. One of the things that we are trying to do is champion a regional approach to regulations. An example will be like GDPR in the European Union. You don't have to comply separately with German data protection law and then France and then Italy. So if in Africa or even East Africa or SADC we had that, then it's a regional approach. So this is not to say we are against compliance, but when you comply, but it just reduces the burden on the organization when, of course, the principles are already similar. So if we can come up with a situation where it's a regional approach as opposed to country by country, that will be good. And this is why we are happy when we see things like NADPA, the Network of African Data Protection Authorities, and things like the adequacy decision by the ODPC. So I have to commend the ODPC for those efforts towards that. We have seen it. The other thing is, it's important to have frequent interactions with the regulator to see, where exactly is the concern. Because no regulator just wakes up and say, I have to consent to everything you do. So where exactly is the concern? Has there been anything before, or, and then bring also the challenges. So it's important if you're a company or an organization in this situation, you regularly approach the regulator. And it might not necessarily be just the ODPC, it can also be the ICT authority, whoever is in charge of the cybersecurity as well. And that's closely connected to the third point, which is if you adopt the global best practice in terms of security and privacy. So if you have the ISO certification, if you have the NIST certification as a company, you've already done half the work. So it goes back to security and privacy by design. If you've already adopted those, then we move towards self-regulation. And then, therefore, the conversation becomes, I've already done this. So we're not starting from, have you done encryption and things like that? Yeah.
I like the point you've talked about on collaboration. And my next question will be now to Jackie. As someone who's in this space where you're helping companies comply and ensure that the processing of personal information is safe, and you work across all of Africa, so what do you think, what's the role of collaboration, both from a private sector and also a public sector perspective, and also how can countries, what would you recommend countries do to work together to make sure that there is seamless understanding and implementation of privacy laws?
Thank you for that question. I think my response is really complimenting Fiona in terms of collaboration from a global perspective on data privacy. So I'd like to look at it in 4 pillars, which is obviously unifying standards. She talked about a framework, looking at, having a framework even at an Africa level, right, that we can all adopt from a privacy perspective. So collaboration calls for unifying of standards, right? Collaboration calls for facilitating of, again, what Walubengo and Fiona mentioned, which is cross-data flow, right? So what does that mean? If we collaborate and have a unified way in which we are transferring data across borders that we can all adopt, right? Therefore, then we unify the standard of transfer of data. And then obviously addressing global cyber threat. Data breach is cross-border. It doesn't matter if it's Kenya, it doesn't matter if it's on an African level, whether it's at a worldwide level, is addressing the threat and having, again, a unified approach. And I think what we are seeing now is we have very segmented ways in which data is being protected or governed, and the compliance around it. And therefore, we don't have, sort of a framework that could work for us. Amazon has data centers outside of Kenya, right? Which means we have data sitting outside of Kenya. Does that mean then they are not complying to data privacy policies? They are. So do we have a standard that we can adhere to across the borders? That would be probably a big push by the ODPC office to have something that we can refer to and then therefore collaborate in really the practice of data privacy. Yeah.
So the call has been made to ODPC. Walu, we'll throw it back to you. Maybe Kenya can spearhead the space of let us come up with a global standard or even an African standard that can be adopted across all countries. Lastly, I want us to look at the perspective of solutions. So what role can these innovative technologies play in ensuring that also the privacy concerns have been addressed? And I'll leave this to you, Walu, to talk about it.
But just the earlier challenge, there is some work being done at an East African level for a data governance framework, and within it, the privacy issues. This is because the joint approach is the best approach. So, for example, if the data commissioner in Kenya finds a certain multinational to be in violation and then the one in Uganda doesn't, then it creates a lot of gaps there. Now, on the question of technology and regulation, I think I touched on it in the earlier panels, but I could repeat here that there are compliance tools out there that corporates could use or organizations could use towards complying with the data protection regulations. However, the risk is always that you think it's a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet with compliance. People have to be trained. You have to do your data maps. You've got to write those policies. So there isn't one single tool that will do all the above for you, though there are some that try to do so. I would also repeat that you cannot automate a practice that you haven't adopted. Okay, so you've got to take the employees through the whole data privacy program. They understand what it is. They help you do the data maps. And then later on, you can adopt a certain technology that can automate those spaces. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So maybe just to summarize the conversations we've had today, collaboration is key. We need to spearhead and come up with standards that can be adopted across of Africa, and maybe we can even spearhead that to influence the globe in terms of acceptable data protection practices. And then lastly, my pick away, I think this has been standard across all the panels that have been here today, data protection by privacy and by design.
Thank you so much. Time for questions from the audience. 10 minutes. Questions from the audience very quickly. This side? Okay, let's go. One question, please. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the panelists for a very eye-opening conversation. My name is Valerie Waswa. I'm the data privacy lead at Kictanet. And my question is with regards to the aspect of having a regional view when it comes to data privacy and protection. What is the thin line between data sovereignty and having collaboration? As Mr. Lubengo has said, there is a newly constituted ESC data governance framework that is being put in place for the ESC community. But then what happens when one country does not comply with, let's say, the data sharing agreements, and to what point do we say that let's adhere to the, to the national data privacy laws, because different countries have different systems and levels as to how far they have gone in protecting personal data. Thank you.
Yes. My name is Boniface Butichi Ingumba from African Population and Health Research Center. I'm their data governance officer. And my question goes to ODPC and even other, yes. So my concern has always been that Africa is low, slightly low in digital development when compared to the Western world. And that most of the time we have to import digital products from the...
Sorry to interject, just those asking questions, if they could stand up. I can hear someone speaking, but I don't know from where. Oh, thank you.
Yes. My name again is Boniface Butichi Ingumba from African Population and Health Research Center. I'm their data governance officer. Yeah, having interacted in the world of the data ecosystem, I've realized that continentally Africa suffers from low digital development, and therefore we always import our digital products from the Western world, and therefore we even do not know what amount of data gets to be shared outside this continent, and therefore a challenge in when addressing the aspects of data sovereignty, and also when we want to talk about data localization. That's not my question, but that's my concern. My question goes to, is that lately Kenya is developing the Kenya Digital Health Data Superhighway, and the intent there, a very good intent, continuity of care, so that you can get your care and your history just for the click of digital app on that superhighway. Then a caregiver can understand where you are coming from. But then the problem has been having
and data privacy and protection. For instance, automatically profiling the population in an area to curb crime. Okay, final question here. Let's go. Mitigations of data identity spoofing, where a data subject on the Kenya Power ex-social media platform gets conned of their money through keying in codes that redirects money to a Safaricom pay bill number. Okay. All right. Was there a final question? Final question? Final question. Okay, kindly guide on how to go with data privacy compliance. Do we train the whole employees or specific departments? Over to you. 10 minutes, please.
So on the question on the overview of data privacy and data protection compliance from Kictanet, I'll pass on that to Fiona. The question from Kictanet on having a regional overview on data privacy and data protection, I'll leave that to you and Walu to talk about it. Maybe Walu can speak from the perspective of having a data governance framework for the ESC community, and then Fiona, maybe from your perspective in terms of doing business in all, across the region.
Yeah, the issue of joint approach, and to what extent does each country then has to cede its power to the regional institutions is quite pertinent. But the way it works is that you negotiate the framework. You agree. So for example, in East Africa, each country is at a different level. If you look at Somalia, I think they had their Data Protection Act late last year. South Sudan, not yet, etc. So we're at different level of maturity as far as privacy is concerned. And that in itself becomes a challenge to having a joint position. So what really happens is then you try and get the minimum standard that each member state must adhere to, and then those with slightly more advanced economies are free to go beyond. Okay, so we're saying there must be a minimum sort of human right level approach to privacy in states that don't even have the act. That then becomes part of the agreement. But then it gives leeway to each state to then go further in their national laws, in their national guidelines, in their national regulations. Thank you.
So when it comes to sovereignty, I believe sovereignty and collaboration can coexist. While there might be need for further discussions in, what happens when there's conflict and all those things, these are discussions that have been had in other industries. We've been collaborating as Africa, as East Africa, in other industries, so we can do that as well. Now, what happens is usually, as Walu says, it's in the negotiation, and the lawyers also know there are things like mutual agreement, mutuality clause, where then you can provide for those things. But charters, regional and global charters have existed all through. And the idea is not for someone to say, if this data is in Uganda, then it cannot leave Uganda. If this data was sent by Kenya to Tanzania, then, the idea is not that. And we have legal clauses like mutuality clauses, conflict of interest, exit clauses that provide for such.
So thank you for that. I'll go to the next question. How do we balance the positives and the negatives of emerging technologies? I'll leave this one to Kisaka.
Okay, thank you. So on the positives and negatives of emerging technology, I think this is where the regulations have come to try and address how we can safely use these emerging technologies. I mean, the question that the person who asked, I think it came on Menti, it's the one our MC read. He or she talked about AI being used to profile for purposes of managing crime. I think this is where clauses like, I don't know, I'm a techie, I'm not a data protection professional, so if I get it a bit wrong, I'm on the data protection side, my co-panelists here will correct, but I believe this is where things like lawful basis come in, where if data is being processed for purposes of law enforcement, then there is a basis that there is actually legitimate basis that these guys have to process that data in that way. And so the emerging technology, AI in this case, is just supporting. But then to add or to talk about other emerging technologies in this space, because that question can be broad, there are technologies like blockchain, which provides you an immutable ledger of records, and you can use it for, storing personal data in ways that can be used across different applications. But then again, when you look at this unique technology, it brings in challenges like how does then a data subject exercise their right to be forgotten or the right of erasure. This is an immutable distributed ledger. So it goes back again, I think, to the crafters of the law and the regulators to look at their technologies and see how the law or how the regulations can incorporate the unique characteristics or challenges that are brought in by these technologies to ensure that you have a win-win. Because in itself, the fact that you have, for instance, an immutable ledger with the blockchain is not a bad thing. But you need to look at how then the law accommodates that to ensure that at the end of the day, we have data subjects' privacy being protected.
Thank you for that. The last question, I'm saying we only have 3 minutes left, so I'll pose this one to Jackie and Ezra. Data privacy compliance. Having been in that space helping organizations comply, how do you recommend people go about it? Do I train all my employees? Do I train middle management, or do I train the officers and the technical staff? What should I prioritize? What should I not prioritize? How do you advise entities to go about that?
Okay, I think, first of all, we must appreciate that data is the new currency, period. Data is the new gold, regardless of data in a digital format, data in a physical format. And I think the responsibility, first of all, starts with each and every one of us. It's a personal responsibility in terms of information and data. And I think as an organization, what we have seen in the country is there's a lot of focus on digitization. Obviously, being a presidential mandate across the country to digitize. But I'm not quite sure that it's understood in terms of the entire life cycle of data. From inception, where it's a piece of paper, it's a receipt, it's you drive into a building and you leave your name, your phone number, your ID, whatever it is, and you go, right? And what do they use that information for? Where are they storing that information? Who has access to that information? And I think, you know, an awareness is critical. I don't think it's a seclusion of responsibility. Everybody needs to be trained in understanding the importance of the value of your data, regardless of the format it is in, whether it is digital, whether it is physical, right? And we have to start respecting, if I may use that word, data in whatever form it is, and how it's being exchanged and how you're sharing, and just taking on a posture of treating data privately. So I think, you know, to that question, it's not a seclusion of a department. It's not HR that should train certain people, or IT guys should train certain people. It's appreciating and understanding as an organization, as an individual, data in whatever form it is needs to be understood, respected, so that we can secure it better, right? And use it properly.
Maybe to chime in, I think I want to concur that data is everyone's business. Because if you think about it, we are as strong as our weakest link. For example, you find that people may actually, there are simple data hygiene practices, for example, reply to all. We have people who, when they receive emails, they reply to all. Simple, or when they're doing an email, they put someone's name on the subject. Simple hygiene practices. So I think data is everyone's issue, or even the technology aspect. Before it can be implemented, we need staff to be aware, all staff, irrespective of their departments. For example, we have data loss prevention solutions that require you to classify data, whether it's public or it is internal. And you find there could be some who ignore that, very simple. So I think, for me, when you look at that, the first place we need to start is awareness. People need to understand, and they need to take data seriously, because the ramifications are actually huge. You don't know where this data will land and the implications.
Thank you for that. So maybe just to summarize what has been said, data is the new oil and data is everybody's business. Thank you.
Big round of applause to the moderator and the panelists, and we do have a gift of appreciation. Asante sana. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Many thanks indeed. Thank you so much. Asante sana. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. 12 minutes to the top of the hour. We should be done before 5 p.m. Thank you so much for your patience. In the meantime, I'd kindly request, all of us be upstanding. Let's be upstanding. Come on, let's be upstanding. It's the land of champions, so get ready, get yourself some space. Oh yeah, get yourself some space. We've already seen what we're going to do. We want to see how high you can jump. How high you can jump. Come on, come on. Sitting for a long time is not good for your health. Blood flow, ladies and gentlemen.
You could tell us what unique role government and county governments play in strengthening the data protection ecosystem here in Kenya, and perhaps also a bit onto the barriers that we face and we continue to face. And yeah.
Thank you so much, our panelists. So I'll go straight to the answers or the conversation. That as a government, remember, we are also in the policy making aspect, whereby when we call out on everyone to come and give us more ideas in regards to how we can get together, collaborate, that is where we also come in. So right now we have a draft of our ICT policy where we call each and everyone who is also interested to give their feedback, which helps us a lot. We also have, in regards to setting the rules for the data as government, and also to ensure that the privacy rights of the citizens are well taken care of. That is more of what the government is doing. Also producing the data, because we've always gotten to know that when you want to hide critical information, hide it in books. We don't want to get into reading books, but at the same time, Africa has always been known for not having data per se. So we also ensure that we are collecting enough data that may, or of course, will be able to help us in future. Like for us here at the county government, we have the contact center where you can call. It's a toll-free number where you can just call and get information from the government. Yeah, so that is more or less of what the government is doing, and also for the barriers that contribute to maybe the aspects of the data protection not getting out there is because, of course, the first one, even if I was to ask you, it will be resources which has already been put across. But also let's remember the technological world is moving very fast. So even the technology aspect, whereby we all need to be very fast learners in regards to technology. So if we are not embracing technology per se, then that means it is a barrier to getting us getting even our own information protected as citizens. And also there is that need to ensure that the citizen privacy data is protected. So it is already more of a barrier if that does not happen. So thank you. Yes, I'll give a chance.
Thank you, Engineer Lucy. I'll move to Fiona, Dr. Songa from TESPOC. Perhaps on just the same lines around what unique role your sector plays in strengthening the data protection ecosystem, and perhaps also what barriers you see.
Now, the Technology Service Providers Association of Kenya brings together the different connectivity providers within the ICT ecosystem. We've got the content distributors as well, and the ISPs, the mobile operators, and all these have a role to play in the entire data protection process. Why? Because all of them are either data processors or data controllers. And that means that they have a responsibility to play in as far as handling of that personal. Providers are being held liable for data that belongs to an individual, and the individual has already taken that data and put it in the public space. So when you take your personal data and you expose it, how then is the service provider supposed to be held liable for that? So those are some of the challenges that we are having to deal with, and the conversation of intermediate liability has been on ever since we began the data protection conversation. And we seem not to be getting to a point where there is clarity on who's responsible for what. And that means then that we need to see how we tidy that up. We are collaborating with the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner to see how we can address this effectively. The other issue that we see as a challenge is the issue of siloed approach to implementation of projects in this country. We are hearing of a health superhighway. We are hearing of a digital superhighway. We are hearing of an agricultural superhighway. All these superhighways, you want the same connectivity providers to connect all of you. It is almost like tunavuta bangi lakini. We need to see how we can work better, because the connectivity that I give you as an ISP is the same connectivity I will give to the hospitals, is the same one I give to education, it's the same that I give to agriculture. There is no different superhighway. There is no such thing. If we can be rational human beings and look at how we deploy technology, we shall appreciate that there is more need for us to work together under existing institutions and frameworks like those of data protection, for example. It will be easier for us. Can you imagine now as service providers, we've got all this, everyone with their superhighway, and then Office of Data Protection needs to come and manage us on all these. We are duplicating things. Can we find a way of stopping the duplication? If we can do that, I think, because that's our biggest challenge. As service providers, you're asked to put cybersecurity monitoring for every ministry, every sector. It is the same infrastructure. Tupunguze hiyo tuna meza, tupunguze kidogo.
Thank you, Dr. Songa, for that, and we'll come back to it. I'll move on to Mercy Mercy Baraza from Roma Services as a service provider in the data protection space. What unique role do you play in this space, and perhaps what barriers have you seen from a practitioner's point of view?
All right, thanks for the question. So I handle, or we handle, consulting around data governance, and we are focused on empowering organizations to actually use their data to unlock the power in that data, to ensure that how valuable this data is. When people say it's the new oil or soil, do they know how valuable it is, and how do they unlock it and use it so that they can progress their businesses? Not only related to personal identifiable information or sensitive information, but they have a lot of data. They can innovate using that data. So in the private sector, the key role that the private sector needs to play is to ensure that they're enhancing that trust with their customers. How are they giving the customer a good experience? Are they ensuring that the customer is able to receive their service and is happy? What is the experience they're giving? Or are they having, as Fiona put it, fragmented implementation of the different laws they're supposed to go by? And by doing that fragmentation, then they forget, and maybe using technology as their key driver of the business rather than the other way around, looking at the data as the key driver of the business. Is that what, are they able to innovate responsibly, look and work within the guardrails that I think we spoke about quite a bit in the morning? Are they fostering the compliance that's required with by the Data Protection Commissioner? I think the important thing is to look at, we've talked a lot about technology, we've talked a lot about the frameworks, the policies that are in place, but have we really looked at how are these frameworks being implemented? Where is the intelligent body behind the system that's there? We have an AI system, we have so many other things, but who is the person behind that system that's saying, I have to make a human decision, no matter what we do, I don't think AI will ever replace a warm body behind it. It can't replace that. So in order to ensure that we're dealing with the barriers that come across due to lack of collaboration within the different sectors is awareness. I can't overstress capacity building. I can't overstress understanding. And I think Fiona has touched a lot about it. The individual, as an individual, what's your responsibility? It can't be placed only on the organizations that we deal with. It also sits solely with you as a person. Do you understand what it means when yesterday somebody was asking me, does the Data Protection Act cover, I'm in a group of engineers, and somebody got an engineer from a utility company, okay, Kenya Power, coming to read the meter, or a service provider, coming to read the meter. And when they came in, they needed to look at your ID. This guy takes a photo of the ID, which has his full names, and then it has his ID. And then he posts it in a WhatsApp group to confirm, is this a real Kenya Power staff? I mean, if you're doing that as an individual, what other things are happening? And are we really paying attention to what the Data Protection Act says? As individuals, we also have, I think, code of conducts where we're employed. So if this person is employed somewhere, are they just at liberty to take someone's information and do that? Anyway, at the end of the day, the major thing to look at is, are people aware of what the Privacy Act says? That act, it's a short document, 50 pages. Anybody can read it and you will know what it says. But how are we implementing? Are we ensuring that our board level knows what this thing says and they've not just dumped it in one of the departments in the organization? Are we ensuring that our staff who is working in a mall understands that they can't pick somebody's ID and sit with it there as they're continuing serving them? So I think the major thing is to look at everybody plays a very important role. And as private sector, it's important, yes, you have your frameworks internally, but ensure that awareness and capacity building is being done on a regular basis.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Mercy, and in keeping everyone on board, Diana, you work for GIZ Kenya, a key development partner in Kenya's digital transformation journey. So what perhaps would you define as your unique role that you play in the space, and also the barriers you've seen to collaboration?
Thank you, Victor, for the question. So I work in GIZ under the Digital Transformation Center as an advisor. And what the Digital Transformation Center aims to do is to strengthen Kenya in improving digital transformation for sustainable economy. So the role that we have played as GIZ in strengthening data protection in Kenya is, one, supporting in the implementation of policies, frameworks, and guidelines. So we have supported by collaborating with the government and different stakeholders in shaping policies that impact data protection. So a good example will be how we have supported in the development of the AI strategy, which just underwent stakeholder collaboration recently. Number two, we have also supported ODPC. Maybe to put it into context, so as DTC, our main political partner is ODPC, because we have 4 pillars, one of them being to strengthen data protection. So we have strengthened data protection by supporting ODPC in developing sector-specific guidelines. Some have been posted on the ODPC website. The other thing that we've been able to do is capacity building, both at the ODPC level and externally. So what we have done, because we have worked this journey with ODPC since the Act came into force and the office was established, we've been able to train the staff on matters data protection. We've also been able to work with other stakeholders to enhance capacity. So because we also take into account that it is not the government that plays the role of strengthening data protection, but also the civil society, private sector, academia, and even individuals themselves. So we've worked with an example, Article 19, in capacity building for marginalized groups and also media practitioners, just to bring awareness on matters of data protection. The other thing we've been able to do to support and strengthen data protection is foster regional and international collaboration. So just to give an example, we are currently running a project where we have set up a grant between Kenya and the Belgian Data Protection Authority, where the aim is to support ODPC with ad hoc advisories. ODPC is able to do study visits just to understand how the Belgian Data Protection Authority is able to carry out its mandate effectively. Something else we've also
maybe perhaps on the barriers for time.
Okay, sorry. So for the barriers that we have also been able to see as a development partner is the limited resources, especially when it comes to SMEs and startups. So what we purpose to do as a development partner as GIZ is to support ODPC in coming up with a sandbox. This is something that even Walubengo mentioned earlier, so that we are able to control innovation in a secure environment, taking into account the provisions of the Data Protection Act. Something else that we have seen as barriers to collaboration is the overlapping laws that are there. So different jurisdictions have different provisions on data protection law, which creates a barrier even when it comes to compliance. Maybe another barrier that we have seen as development partners is the misaligned priorities, because you have different stakeholders taking part in strengthening data protection. You find that the private sector, their main aim is to maybe make profit, and they are a bit slow maybe in complying. You find that the government are also adamant in enforcing the act. However, so what we do as GIZ, because our main role is also fostering collaboration and stakeholder engagement, we bring all these players on the table, and we are just able to come up with a shared vision, come up with objectives, and align on the priorities so as to strengthen data protection.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Diana, for that. I don't know if we still have the online panelists. No. Okay, great. So that leaves us the rest of the time to the people in the room. So I'll just go quickly to your parting shots and just one final question each, so that before we let you go. What perhaps would be actionable strategies to foster trust and cooperation among stakeholders based on, of course, the unique roles that you have mentioned you play within the sectors, the barriers that you have already seen and actually foreseen to the future? So what really would be the actionable steps? And if you could combine that with a parting shot, that would be great. We'll start again with you, Engineer Lucy Ngendo.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Much has already been said, but on our part, as in regards to government, what is needed is creation of awareness. That is very key. We may want to assume that this information is getting to so many people, but in real sense, it is getting to few. As we create awareness, we need to also consider some different needs for different stakeholders. I mean, like the minors now, the ones who, the young children, the CBC or whoever, Generation Alpha, leave alone Gen Z. How do we get them to know that they are protected, and they also need to ensure that what they get to know or to see, and that engagement as a whole, how protected are they? Like maybe a young child sees his or her photo somewhere. What are the steps to take for that young kid? Because maybe the parents are not in the digital space all the time. Also, we also need to know that active listening will come in handy, because as much as we want to assume everyone is on social media or everyone is, we need to also give a chance as government to the citizens to actually listen to their concerns. Most of the concerns are very genuine. Whenever I talk about the 25th of June, it is, as much as it, maybe we may want to say it took us off guard, but for most people who are engaging online, you could see some anger in the citizens in what is being said. So once we are keen on listening to the people, to the citizen, it will also help us to take action in regards to what is this that they require, what is this that they need for us as government to take part in. And also, and also delivering on the promises. Maybe as I speak on behalf of the government, we know that most of the time we want to make promises, but campaigning time, maybe we may say it is allowed, but once we are now in government, it is good to keep our promises, if not 100%, at least 80%, so that we are also gaining trust and from the citizens who put us in positions. We also need to be acknowledging the concerns out there, that they are real. Otherwise, it is good for us to know that whatever data that goes out there, I think Daktari has said it well. If your data is out there, maybe in one way or the other, you should also know that it came out from your own convolution. So most of the time, it is a two-way traffic, as Daktari had said. So sometimes, maybe even the government is torn between where to go. But even as we implement the policies and the frameworks that are already there, we actually need to know that the concerns are real, and we need to take a side.
All right, thank you, CC. We'll quickly move on the same question, Dr. Songa.
For me, what I would say...
And sorry, just under a minute.
Yes, I'll be brief. What I would like to say is that it's important that we recognize the different roles of the different stakeholders within the ecosystem, because it is through recognition of the roles that we are able to build the trust. And when we trust, then we are able to facilitate diversity and inclusion in the conversations and in the different thoughts that come through. And we are able to then work better, because then we are appreciating everyone's roles. And that means that we will appreciate the fact that, for example, those doing capacity building will do their role, the government will play its role, the private sector, the partners will all come in and do the small things that they need to do, and then we will stop to duplicate, because we have addressed the issue of trust. And the other thing that we need to be able to work on is to make sure, because I think now this has to be intentional by the governments, making sure that at the county level, the county and national governments can collaborate and work together, because we are talking about like a sector in ICT that is not a devolved function. So then that collaboration couldn't be more important. And then within the government ministries, different ministries wanting to use the digital platforms, collaborate with the ICT ministry. What is happening is that everybody is wanting to oversight the ICT space. We can't have too many regulators. So for me, it's really government having policies that are intentional, that facilitate the collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Songa. Quickly over to Marcy, a hot minute and close.
Even be as long as a minute, because I think, Fiona, well done, good job. You've said most of the things I thought of saying, but I think one thing, we need to have transparency. We need to have transparency in how we approach privacy as a private sector, even public, the CSOs. Everyone needs to be able to report on what they're doing in privacy. We need to have a line in our financial statements to say, we have done 1, 2, 3, 4 this year, and this is how we're planning to work next year. That way you're enhancing trust with the different stakeholders. And then there's also the forums that have been put in place. But I want to stop there, because I think enhancing trust will really dwell on how transparent we are and not being scared of the regulator. The regulator, I think, has said many times that they're our friends. So let's enhance that trust through transparency.
Yeah, thank you, Marcy. I think we have 30 seconds for Diana's parting shot.
Thank you, Victor. I'll also keep it short. So I think only 3 points. So one, I think I can also not emphasize enough about capacity building. So, and I think I want to do a big shout out to Roma. I've seen that you've partnered with PECB to offer training and certification courses on data protection. So I'm really big on capacity building. Number 2, I think it is also important to have inclusivity. we need to take into account that different groups are also affected by data protection. So cultural differences, age. So it is important to put everyone's perspective into place so as to also come up with better decisions when it comes to data protection. Number 3, I think as Jay said, I think we also need to purpose to have more multi-stakeholder forums where we bring all stakeholders together, share ideas, and achieve one goal, which is to strengthen data protection. And just as my parting shot or a summary, I think we also need to understand that now collaboration is not just about having strategies, but it is necessary in this world to strengthen data protection. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Questions from the audience? Questions from the audience? Just 2, and the rest from Menti. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Faith, and I would like to ask this question to the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. Is it possible to collaborate with the education industry, whereby you come up with, in primary and high school, you come up with clubs where those students in those clubs will be spreading the gospel of data, the data protection and everything. So that will be something that will be running. Anyone who is in that club will be spreading the gospel year in, year out. And then in high school, in universities, can we have maybe, we incorporate this information into the common unit that is common in everyone, whereby when you are in a first year, the first unit you are taught is the common unit. So can we have this information inside there so that it will be something that will be running? Anyone who goes through first year, he or she knows about the data privacy and everything, so that when you breach anything through social media, you already know the consequences. Also, can they, now that you're setting up an office here in Eldoret, can we do a sensitization program with the CSO network? Because the CSO, we deal with the community, whereby my boss tells me, you go gather data about business in the community. I go to Mama Mboga, ninamwambia ninahitaji details yako, nitakuja na training. And I take that data, I give it to my boss. I don't know if my boss will give it to someone else, and that someone else will breach that. Maybe he can sell that. So can we have something like that? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bernard Sabiti. I am from APHRC. We are a research institution, more on the side of the scientific research community. I think we also need to expand the tent. I'm a bit concerned about the people that are not in this room. People like the Bureau of Statistics, NACOSTI, KEMRI, For us in the research community, actually, most people really are not very aware of this whole data protection thing, and yet they produce massive amounts of data. Personally, my principle is wherever I go to a conference and I find I know too many people in the room, that's a problem. It means that we are talking to each other all the time, and we are not actually expanding to find out non-traditional allies to strengthen this ecosystem. It shouldn't be 70% lawyers, as somebody said. Another thing, I have no vendetta against lawyers. My only brother is a lawyer. But I just believe that we need, where are the data scientists? Where are the data analysts? Where are the, because those are the people that are very active at the very first level of the data value chain, which is data production. And it seems that we don't have a lot of them represented in these conversations, and that can be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. Let's go to Menti very quickly. Let's take these questions. Kofia. How can the government support small businesses in complying with data protection regulations without burdening them financially? Let's just take 2 more questions very quickly. How could we translate awareness into practice plus compliance? Despite undertaking awareness sessions, we've realized that SMEs and CSOs remain non-compliant. And finally, awareness, but it rarely works. How can we do it differently to ensure it's effective? 10 minutes, please.
All right. Yeah, a great host of questions, and I think the panelists were following through. So we have one that was to the ODPC on the education sector. collaborations, the education sector clubs, education sector having clubs in high schools and university chapters. I don't know if anyone will be happy to take that. There's also the question around expanding the tent for more people. I think we can start with those two. Anyone happy to take that? We can start with Diana, then.
Okay, I can take the first question on education, because like I mentioned in the beginning, our main political partner is ODPC. So I think it is very much doable, the suggestion on inculcating data protection in high schools. And we did like a trial run with one of the universities. This was Strathmore University, where they were implementing a project in collaboration with ODPC, so throughout universities, both private and public. So with the target being not only students, but also teachers. And out of that, they were able to also do a data protection course, which is also accessible on the Strathmore website. And there's a deliverable out of that project was also signing MOUs between universities and educational institutions just to strengthen data protection. So to answer your question, I believe that this is doable based on what we have been able to see the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner and Strathmore University do. Yes.
Okay, Dr. Songa?
I will take the second question and the last one, because I think that they are interrelated in terms of expanding the tent and doing things differently. Now, I think that if we are able to build trust and be able to bring everybody to the table, we will not be seeing the same faces. And that means that there's a lot of work for us to do in terms of data protection, to be able to make sure that there is sufficient inclusion to create diversity and to bring other stakeholders to the table. We are not the only stakeholders. And so to do that means that we have to be able to intentionally, I said when I was talking, we have to be intentional on some of these issues. So we must intentionally reach out and make sure that we are having representation across various entities. If we were to think of it in terms of the different economic sectors for starters, the different ministries, the different government representations, national and local government broadly, having several representation. Thinking of it in terms of even issues of the persons with disability, the minorities, and these things, and making sure that they can come to these conversations. And we have to also be able to, and this maybe goes more to civil society and private sector, because it is us who have to do the lobbying to make sure that the governments are able to have in place the right policy, the right frameworks that will make things work. If we are not intentional on making things work, then this becomes just a routine conversation where we gather every year and we talk about the same things. If we want to see a difference, we must change the way we do it and make sure we are intentional on bringing in different players. I'm excited that at this meeting, though the faces may be the same, but the representation out there in the exhibition tents is different. It is broadening. That is a positive step, and kudos to the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. But we need to get them from not just being exhibitors and sponsors, but onto the discussion platform, and seeing how we can run this not just as a conference with panels, but having even side workshops going on different sectors and different areas, because I know that sometimes we end up duplicating things because there's a lack of understanding on how the ecosystem works. How do we get everyone to understand, as many people are supposed to understand how the ecosystem works? We will not wait until Roma is doing the trainings. And some people can't do those trainings. Can we have an opportunity where we are able to participate in a convention like this, and we are asked, as TESPOC, we are told, yes, we will give you 2 hours side room. You come in and talk to people about connectivity issues, so that people begin to understand the limits and delimits of connectivity. Where does it start and end? And at what point are we handling your data? And at what point is the data yours and the responsibility yours as an individual?
Okay, thank you. I think Mercy, and then I come to Engineer Lucy, and then we'll have a panelist at large answer the education sector question, the Deputy Data Commissioner, Walubengo. So Mercy, just quickly on the question around financial burden for data protection compliance. 1 minute.
Financial burden. I thought I was going to answer about the awareness issue.
Sure.
And I think she started on it in terms of, can we have the workshops? But also there's the aspect that someone said there's awareness, but there's no like implementation. So the idea behind it is, and this is what we do in the business in Roma, you ensure that you're aware. But then, even if I come and teach you, is there a way that I can measure what you've learned? Will I give you an exam? And it's a short exam, but it will cover what you have learned today. And if you're not able to pass that, and you're serving customers in a front desk in a mall, then how do we know that you've learned? So it's how we teach that needs to change, which is those forums, workshops. And then it's also to ensure that even in these workshops, we get down and dirty in the process to ensure that at that level, we have probably topical issues that are being discussed, real cases that are happening. Today, I'm sorry to highlight this, but today one of the participants today says, we're in a data privacy workshop, but then when I came to register, I can see the names and phone numbers of people who have registered. So are we really thinking about privacy in the right way and implementing it correctly? I know I mentioned it to the office, but these are some of the things that you need to look at. It's not about the systems and computers and databases that we have. It's more on the really basic stuff, which again, at the end of the day, in as much as we're in a digital economy and moving forward, we need to remember also there's a lot of paper, manual processes that are still going on. So it's about teaching people within their roles, within their organizations. This is how you treat data. This is how you treat your customer. And remember, even the Data Protection Act is not supposed to stifle how we are doing things. It's also supposed to promote how we are serving people. So I think in a nutshell, that's it.
Thank you, Mercy. Engineer Lucy, just under a minute, please.
Thank you so much. So mine will also be brief. In regards to expanding the tent, I would also want to maybe challenge the ODPC office in regards to just letting the information out there. I also believe that whenever we have functions as in government, all we need to do is just to get the information out there, and so many stakeholders who are interested will be here, because I also feel like our maybe committee in ICT at the county assembly and just the North Rift region, so many of them will be here because the information is very critical. Remember when we say about the MOUs or frameworks or the policies, the laws, they are very key in ensuring that that information is out there. They are the ones who interact also with the people, and we need to get each and every person in Kenya to know about the data protection. In regards to the SMEs, why they don't comply, maybe most of them don't even know that there is maybe a fee, or maybe there is a way they need to just get the information, because I believe for you to be a data processor or data controller, you pay online, I believe so. So it is it's maybe information that is also not out there for the SMEs. So, and also in regards to the CBOs and maybe civil society coming in, it is very, very key. I think that is a challenge to the government and also the ODP's office. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Lucy Ng'endo. I think the final will be given to John Walubengo, Deputy Data Commissioner, just to answer in under a minute.
A minute.
Yes.
Yeah, I think today I've sat on all panels. I hope I'll get a gift for this. Yeah, I just, there was a very good proposal that ODPC should capture data privacy issues at the lowest level, primary school, high school, that kind of thing. And we are seized of that matter. In fact, we participate on with the Kenya the usual drama, the annual drama festival by high school and primary schools. We try to get the youngsters to think data privacy by having skits around privacy every year. But on a more long-term basis, we are working with the Curriculum Development Institute so that it becomes a unit at primary school and high school. It's a project that actually started under my directorate last year, and we hope at the end of this year we should be able to have at least the draft curriculums. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to the panelists and the moderator, Asanteni Sana. We do have a gift of appreciation for all of you. Let's have the gifts. And in the meantime, as they receive their gifts, join the quiz. Let's have it on the screen. Simple, simple, simple. Just get your phones, get your phones, get your phones. We want to make sure that you leave here with a gift. But it's all dependent on how you perform in this simple quiz. Simple quiz, simple quiz. Just go to menti.com. That's menti.com, menti.com. The code on the screen, 333 189 18. 333 189 18. Pick an image, pick a name. Eyes on your phones. Simple questions. Get yourself a gift. A big round of applause once again. Thank you so much to the panelists and the moderator, Asanteni Sana. Thank you so much. All right, we want to close. We want to close. We want to close. Join, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final engagement. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. Boom. We've got 41 players. Make sure you participate. Simple questions, ladies and gentlemen. Where are the gifts? Are the gifts ready? Are the gifts ready? Metrofile, courtesy of Metrofile, and courtesy of ODPC. Okay. 2 gifts. All right. Let's get to 50. 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. Let's roll the dice. The question. Answer fast to get more points. Everything on your phone. What does ODPC stand for? Mike, if you fail on this, come on. No, it can't happen. You can't miss on this. Simplest question ever. Ladies and gentlemen, hold. Tuko na shida. Organization of Data Protection Company, my friend. Who is that? We need to... Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. My goodness, everything is even written on the... Okay, anyways, let's move on to the next question. Simple question. But let's see the winner. First round winner. Get ready. First winner. Creative WAF. Ezra, Riri, Olivia. Where's Creative WAF? Okay. Check. This is the final round. Ezra, Riri, Olivia, Anthony, Zuma, Ronnie, Bubbles, Shruti, Mac. Don't worry, the rest. Do well, you will just appear. Next question. This is it. We're closing, ladies and gentlemen. 65 players on board. Okay, roll. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. Answer fast to get more points. Answer fast. Who is the date? Oh, now if you fail this, we need to freeze privacy a bit. We need to find out. Come on. If you miss on this, I don't know what we'll do. I don't know what we'll say. But oh my goodness, this is not happened. Oh my good. John Walube, come on. All right. Unleash it, ladies and gentlemen. Who is the winner? Okay. Who is the winner, ladies and gentlemen? There can only be one winner, ladies and gentlemen. Creative WAF, where are you? Creative WAF, come on. Where are you, Creative WAF? Uko wapi? Ayuko? Edward, what? Kuna. Okay, let's the next one. Riri, where's Riri? AI. Riri, John, makofi yake tafadhali. Well done. Okay, we've got 2 gifts. We've got 2 gifts. Jackie, please. Metrophile. Asante sana. That's a gift courtesy of Metrophile. Makofi tafadhali. Makofi tafadhali. And the second, let's have it's Zuma. Where is Zuma? Come on, come on, come on. And by the way, we need to confirm. We need to confirm. Let's just check your phone. Check your phone. Is it? Number 2, fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay. And ODPC, number 3. Fantastic. At Kali call upon Bwana Walubengo, please have the honor. Asante sana. Makofi tafadhali, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, wow, wow. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow a lot more will be happening. A lot more will be happening. Thank you so much for your patience. 37 minutes past the hour. Asanteni sana. Tomorrow 8:30 to 9, launch of the Eldoret Regional Office.